All right. Good morning, everyone. This is the regular monthly open meeting of the Third Laguna Hills Mutual Board of Directors, a California nonprofit mutual benefit corporation. Today is Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. It's 9:30 a.m. We are here in the boardroom as well as available for viewing on TV6, Zoom, and Granicus. I'd like to call today's meeting to order. We have a quorum. We'll start today's meeting with our Pledge of Allegiance led by Director Jim Cook. Jim?
If you'll all stand and go along with me, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, Jim. It's now time to approve our agenda. Can I get a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved.
Jim moves, Ira seconds. Thank you. Any suggested changes to today's agenda? Chris?
Yes. Item 11C, the motion to approve an unbudgeted expense for landscape. That does not require a 28-day notice.
Okay. So the change is to remove the 28-day notice comment from agenda item 11C. Anybody have any issues with that change? Right? Any other changes? Okay, is anyone, any board member on Zoom? Michaela?
Does it stay as 11C or does it move somewhere else?
It stays 11C, it's just that the bold part comes off, essentially. Yeah. You okay with that, Kush?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just
so
wanted
making
to
sure,
note that-
to make sure before we. Got it, okay. So, yeah, but I just want to make sure we have agreement, all right? Moving on to agenda item 4, we're now looking to approve meeting minutes for 6 different open board meetings. Today, let's see if we can try to get those addressed collectively. Can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes for the 6 meetings outlined in our agenda package? Chris moves, Ira seconds again. Sorry, SK, missed you. Next time. Anybody have any suggested changes or corrections to any of those 6 meeting minutes? All right. Anybody have any objections to approving them then as is? All right, seeing none, we'll consider those 6 meeting minutes approved by consent. We're now at agenda item 5, which is report of the chair. I really have very little to report today. As I hope you all know, we had elections of board directors recently. Of the 6,102 Manners and Third Mutual, we received ballots from 2,421 of them, which is a little bit less than 40%. Now, while some would think that 40% return rate is pretty good, given that the board of directors makes many decisions on behalf of the members, specifically how much the monthly assessment is, what services you're going to get for that monthly assessment. I personally would have hoped for a little more than 40% return rate. So just kind of an appeal, if anybody has any suggestions as to what the board can do to elicit greater participation in board elections, please let me know, and we'll see what we can do to get those suggestions implemented as appropriate. The election resulted in the re-election of 3 incumbent directors whose terms were expiring. Those are Director Moon and Zalin, who aren't here yet today, and Director Andy Ginocchio. And then Andy also, with Donna leaving, Andy was elected by the board to be our treasurer, so congratulations, Andy. And we do have a new director, Brad Reinhardt. Unfortunately, he scheduled a vacation not knowing whether or not he was going to get elected, so he's missing today's meeting, but I will introduce him more officially to you all next month. So that completes my very brief remarks for the day. As always, thanks for listening and thank you for your support. We're now going to move on to agenda item 6, which is our open forum. At this time, members may address the board of directors regarding items within the jurisdiction of this board of directors and not on the agenda. The board reserves the right to limit the total amount of time allotted to the open forum to 30 minutes. Each member is asked to speak for no more than 3 minutes. A member may speak only once during the forum, and speakers may not give their time to other people. Members who are not in the boardroom can also share their comments by joining this meeting via Zoom or by emailing your comments to meeting@vmsinc.org to have your message read during this open forum should time permit. So Michaela, are there any requests?
Yes, we have one for open forum, and that's Chris Collins.
Good morning, Ms. Collins.
Chris Collins, 3306Q, and this is an update on the work of the foundation, which is on behalf of residents who are experiencing temporary financial crisis. Planning for the inevitable. Why estate planning? Do you think that estate planning is only for the wealthy? Are you concerned that estate planning is a long and labor-intensive process? Have you avoided estate planning for these reasons? If you answered yes, the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village second televised broadcast on the subject of planning for the inevitable will provide practical guidance. It focuses on estate planning issues confronting older adults. It was aired on Village Television beginning Saturday, October 7th at 12 noon, and it will continue on Saturdays for the entire month of October. If you want to view the broadcast on your own schedule, it's also available on the Foundation website, which is foundationoflagunawoodsvillage.org, and it's under a special tab, Planning for the Inevitable. This website section includes the YouTube links for this broadcast and our earlier one, which is on advanced directives. Tune in and hear Faye Blix, a local elder law attorney. She's been an elder law attorney since 1984, and she's the founder of the elder law section of the Orange County Bar Association. According to her, a common misconception is that estate planning is only for the very wealthy. During that broadcast, she explains what can go wrong if you do not have an estate plan, what problems can result from probate, and some specific issues that can be involved in estate planning, like underage beneficiaries or caring for a disabled child. Most importantly, she explains that estate planning is an ongoing process, continuum that begins when you are alive. She emphasized that we need to plan for the possibility of incapacity as part of our estate planning and discusses some immediate steps that we can take to address that possibility. If you have any questions about this topic or the upcoming broadcast, please contact the Foundation, 949-268-2246, or the Foundation at comline.com. And for more information about the Foundation, please go to our website at thefoundationoflagunawoodsvillage.org. Please note that donations can always be made using PayPal on the Foundation website. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is all for open forum.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody have any responses? Yeah, other than thank you, Ms. Collins, for continuing to update us all on the Foundation of Laguna Woods. Appreciate that. Moving on to agenda item 8, which is the CEO report. Good morning, Siobhan.
Good morning. Thank you, President Laws, honorable members of the board. This morning, I'd like to share a few updates on various topics. The first ones are current topics in our community. Recently, we've received inquiries about how to address mosquitoes in the village, and vector control in the village is provided by the Orange County Vector Control District. Residents may visit ocvector.org for information and resources regarding mosquito control. Residents may also submit service requests using the web form on the Vector Control District website, and that address is on the screen before you. Or if you just go to the Vector Control website, there's an option for service requests. The Vector Control District offers the following tips for mosquito control. To eliminate breeding sources around the home, please dump and drain containers filled with water once a week. Clean and scrub bird baths and pet water bowls weekly. Dump water from potted plant saucers on a regular basis. To prevent mosquito bites, apply mosquito repellent to exposed skin before going outdoors, and wear long sleeve shirts and long pants and lighter colored clothing. Similarly, we've received inquiries about coyote activity in the village. The Laguna Beach Police Department's Animal Services Division responds to wildlife situations here in the village. To report encounters, you may call Animal Control at 949-497-0701 or email coyotes@lagunabeachcity.net. To view the Laguna Beach Animal Services Officer David Petrella's interview that provides insight into coyote behavior, tips for walking with or without a dog, and much more, go to bit.ly/3EYCTY6. This is on the Village YouTube channel, and it's a very informative interview. Animal Control reminds us to protect our pets by leaving a distance between you and the coyotes. They will display defensive behaviors if threatened. Do not feed coyotes, eliminate food and water sources, and do not use a retractable leash for walking dogs. Another topic that has been asked about recently is the gutter cleaning program. This program is now handled by our General Services Department. The program begins each fall and is completed by year end. Vendors and staff place an important notice document letter at each manor a minimum of 24 hours before the work commences. In Third Mutual, single-story gutters are maintained in-house by Work Center 936, which is our Streets and Sidewalks division. Multi-story gutters are maintained by an outside contractor. And the third 2024 budget includes $15,000 for a rain gutter cover pilot program. Work performed in the program includes debris removal from the gutter by blowing or by hand. Downspouts are cleared. Minor repairs such as replacing gutter spikes are completed. Verifying splash guards are in place. Removing debris from patio covers. Alteration gutters are serviced to prevent structural damage. All gutters are serviced once per year. Additional cleanings may be required in high leaf debris areas, and that's a part of an ongoing efficiency analysis. And any emergency gutter cleaning identified by staff, a vendor, or a member are prioritized and addressed immediately. In terms of the schedule, work generally progresses numerically beginning with Building 1. Some modifications are made based on geography and building locations. Buildings 340 and 562 in United are currently being cleaned. VMS anticipates getting to buildings within Third Mutual approximately the third week of November, so mid to later November. Analysis is underway to ensure program effectiveness and efficiency and to maximize the value received from the contractor. Buildings are now spot checked via a new inspection web form that's pictured on the screen to the right, and feedback is provided to the contractor and to Work Center 936 if corrections are required, and those are scheduled as needed. I also wanted to highlight some cost savings and efficiencies that VMS has been working on. As a reminder, please remember that cost savings that I'm about to outline are positive efforts, but Third Mutual's budget is more than $43 million. As a result, these efforts alone don't offset the costs of supplies, staff, property insurance, and so forth, which are increasing. And Third Mutual's monthly assessment is going to increase by 5% next year. However, these are good efforts, and I think they're worth outlining for our members. An innovative 2024 health insurance strategy that maintains non-union employee benefits at the current level, maintains the current insurance company and physicians at a reasonable cost to the company, has been identified despite the rising costs in the marketplace. This is estimated to save a total of $300,000 in 2024 as compared to the budget. Third savings associated with this new health insurance plan will be approximately $45,000 next year. Our communications division is digitizing docent tours. These are tours offered to prospective residents to help them to get to know the village and decide ultimately if they want to reside here. By doing this, this eliminates bus and driver's costs for an estimated savings ranging from $14,000 to $22,000 annually, and will save more than 270 hours of staff time. The division is also encouraging our residents to select electronic delivery as their preferred delivery method, and this would be for your fall and spring mailings that are required by state law. To date, more than 1,800 third owners have opted to receive their documents electronically, and this is going to save approximately $13,700 annually. Residents may email information@vmsinc.org to indicate your mailing preference. And again, we encourage residents to go electronically if that is convenient for them. Our Community Services Division has recently implemented an escrow notification system. This allows buyers and sellers to track their resale package progress. This was a request that we received at the May 2023 Real Estate Forum. This system queries Stellar, which is an in-house software system, hourly to determine the status of that package. And if it's changed, the escrow company and selling and buying agents are notified via email of the following statuses. The escrow package has been received and entered into the system. Staff has begun processing the package and preparing it for board review, and the package has been sent to the board for review. Community Services estimates this will reduce telephone calls and email contacts to Community Services by more than 20%, and they receive more than 8,400 annual contacts. So we think that will save staff time because the phone calls and repeat emails won't be necessary, and we will be tracking that. This action, more importantly, enhances customer service to our real estate community and shows that we are responsive to the interactions we are having with them at the real estate forums. General Services continues to work to make trash services more efficient. Recycling carts in 6-pack trash enclosures have been standardized to 190-gallon cart per enclosure. This will save Third Mutual approximately $8,000 annually, while increasing recycling capacity in those enclosures by 23%. The department also continues to work with CR&R and the city to reduce the number of missed pickups to less than 0.25% of all pickups. Information Services has made the village website ADA compliant. This includes ADA necessary tools to help our residents with special needs navigate until the new website project is complete. To enact these tools, please click on the blue icon in the bottom right-hand corner of the village webpage, and that's circled in red on your screen. I also want to mention the Employee Excellence Awards were presented on October 9th, and I thank those board members who were able to attend. These awards highlight outstanding employees who demonstrate excellent customer service, achieve great results on projects, and regularly go above and beyond regular job duties. The recipients are from Financial Services, Mike Robb, our Central Services Supervisor, who runs the print shop, Kendra Osborne, our Accounting Supervisor, in General Services, Dwight Griffith, Broadband Technician, and Pete Iglesias, our Paving Foreman. Lucy Hernandez was recognized in Human Resources. In Landscaping Services, Vincente Martinez, our Section 1 Foreman, and George Porras, our Pest Control Foreman, were recognized. In Maintenance and Construction, Jason Wynn, Operations Coordinator, and Justin J. Allen, Damage Restoration Manager, were recognized. In Recreation, Laura Covarrubias, our Senior Equestrian Supervisor, was recognized. And in Security, we had Roger Cowdrey, Security Supervisor 2, Jean Delhomme Chestnut, Administrative Supervisor in Social Services, and Jacob Juananosto in Compliance, a Compliance Coordinator, were recognized for their outstanding performance in the past 6 months. Please join me in congratulating and thanking these employees for their efforts. And lastly, I want to remind everyone of 2 upcoming events. There is an upcoming Caltrans on-ramp closure. We've been informed that there is an upcoming 9-day closure of the northbound I-5 straight on-ramp from westbound El Toro Road. The estimated start time is 10 p.m. on Monday, October 23rd, and it will last until approximately 5 a.m. on Wednesday, November 1st. For more information regarding the South County Improvements Project, you can visit the Caltrans District 12 website, and that address is on the screen before you. And the Fall Real Estate Forum is tomorrow, October 18th at 2 o'clock in Clubhouse 5. Residents are encouraged to participate in a resales Q&A session with staff in the real estate community. If you plan to attend, please RSVP to realtorforum@vmsinc.org. And that concludes my presentation this morning. Thank you.
A lot of information, thank you. Any members of the board have any questions for Siobhan? Andy?
Good morning, Siobhan. I have a question, actually, a couple questions regarding mosquitoes. You know, before I came to the woods, I live in Costa Mesa, and I've been in Costa Mesa a couple years, and all of a sudden we got hit by mosquitoes. And it was the kind of thing where one part of the city got hit, and they moved several blocks every year into the city, so that the city was completely conquered, let me say, by these mosquitoes. And what we're talking about is Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus. The aegypti is a night biter. The albopictus, which is also called the Asian tiger because it's got stripes on the side, you can actually see it. They bite during the day. They're aggressive. They'll follow you around and bite you. My question is, these are not going away. And like I said, they invade, they spread. And personally, where I live near Gate 9, haven't had a problem. And I'm wondering, my sister-in-law, who lives by Gate 5, has a problem. I'm wondering, do we spray in the village for mosquitoes?
I think the Vector Control District does localized treatments, and they also treat the creek with mosquito fish and things like that. But again, it's more on a case-by-case basis than a general spraying throughout the community.
Yeah, I talked to Vector Control years ago, and they have a couple different attitudes. They don't really want to hurt the mosquitoes that are local, that are native to the, but since the Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus are invaders, they came in from Asia, they have a different policy and they will go after them. The problem is they don't want to kill the local native mosquito in killing these Asian invaders. I just want to let you know there is a program, it's going on in California, and that has to do with introducing to the local population sterile males. They treat them by the millions in a lab, and then they release them into the population. And males being males, they interact with the female mosquitoes, and because they can't produce any offspring, they crash the population. So there's several trial programs in California, and hopefully our local area will get some of those, because that's really the way to handle this. Until then, make sure that you keep your screen doors closed, because they will follow you inside and bite you, and it gets pretty nasty. So stay informed. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Andy. Kush, did you have something you wanted to say as well?
Yes, please. Will this real estate forum, will this be recorded or for later viewing?
Yes, and that's why it is being hosted where it is at Clubhouse 5. We have that capability.
Okay. All right.
Okay, that was your question?
That was
okay. I just had one comment about mosquitoes as well. I think you heard something about it from people in Gate 11. There's a creek in Gate 11 that doesn't run very full, so I'm hoping somebody's looking at that, because we can all keep water from around our house from collecting, but this creek area, I think, may be breeding some.
We did pass that along to the district after the meeting, and I'm assuming it's been treated with mosquito fish, but I will follow up.
Okay, great, thanks. All right. We're now going to move on to agenda item 10, which is our consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are recommended for action by committees and will be enacted by the board via a single motion. Today, per the consent calendar, sorry, this is agenda number 9. I don't know how I read 10. Per the consent calendar, the board is being asked to ratify the preliminary financials for the month of August 2023 and approve 3 lien requests which were suggested by the Finance Committee. Can I get a motion to approve today's consent calendar? Jim moves. Ralph seconds. Spreading it around a little bit. Any questions, comments from members of the board regarding the consent calendar? Okay, any from members? None? Okay, any objections to approving the consent calendar then? Okay, Seeing none, the consent calendar is approved by consent. And now we're up to agenda item 10, where we'll be discussing and voting on some unfinished business. Agenda item 10A is for the board to entertain a motion to revise the administrative fee for damage reimbursements. This proposal was suggested to be forwarded to the full board by the Resident Policy and Compliance Committee. Last month, the board approved these changes for 28-day member review and comment. So today we'll be voting as to whether or not to approve this updated administrative fee. I'd like to start by asking Chris to read the resolution for us. Chris?
Yes, revised administrative fee for damage reimbursements. Whereas pursuant to Civil Code Section 5855, the mutual is required to hold hearings to impose any monetary charges to reimburse the mutual for costs incurred in the repair of damage to the common area or facilities caused by the actions or inactions of a member, his or her tenant, guest, invitee, or vendor. And whereas significant staff time is necessary to investigate, document, and prepare concise reports for the damage reimbursement hearings, and whereas the previous policy only applied the administrative fee to damage reimbursements over $1,000, and whereas the mutual has seen an increase in administrative costs related to these damage reimbursement proceedings. Now therefore be it resolved, October 17, 2023, that the Board of Directors hereby adopts a revised administrative fee policy for damage reimbursement, and resolve further, effective November 1, 2023, the fee of costs related to damage reimbursement proceedings will be a minimum of $20 or 10% of the total reimbursement for all decisions, regardless of the amount, whichever is greater. And resolve further, this fee would become applicable at the point the hearing notification is generated, as at that point additional staff work is involved. And resolve further, Resolution 03-18-157, adopted on November 29, 2018, is hereby superseded and canceled. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Can I get a motion to approve the updated admin fee? Jim moves. Andy seconds. Thank you. Any questions, comments regarding this? Anybody wants to share? Seeing none. Any member comments on this topic? Okay. It's time to vote. I think we're going to try voting electronically. Is that the plan? Hey, oh, okay. Hey, our screens are changing. Okay. All right. Let's see if it works today. Again, this vote is to approve this updated admin fee for implementation. Okay, just so thumbs up, thumbs down. Thank you. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8, 9. Okay,
Ralph, do you want to give me a thumbs up? Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. All right. So this, of the 9 of us here, this passed with a vote of 8 for, 0 against, and 1 abstention. Thank you, board. Move on to agenda item 10B. And before I do, I'm just going to kind of quickly chat about what this 28-day review and approval. I saw an email earlier over the last couple days. Some people were not understanding. So when a new rule or policy is put before the full board will vote on it, and if they vote to approve that new policy or rule, that policy is put essentially on 28-day member review and approval to allow the board to receive comments from our members within those 28 days. so that we can take those into account before we finalize our vote, usually in the next monthly board meeting. So that's kind of what that process is all about. And moving on to agenda item 10B, this is for the board to entertain a motion to eliminate demolition consent requirements and associated fees when requested. These updates were suggested by the Architectural Controls and Standards Committee, or our ACSC. You may recall that the board discussed this last month and voted to give it back to the ACSC to clarify it based upon questions and comments of the board. The ACSC updated it, and today we'll be voting as to whether or not to submit this resolution forward for 28-day member review and comment. Does anyone from staff have any opening comments for us regarding this? Good morning, Bart.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. President, board members. So this item essentially provides members and their contractors two options. One option is to continue processing mutual consents the same way as it has been done up until now, which is a two-step process. Request a demolition consent initially to get some of the work going while the final plans are being finalized and approved by the city. A second option is for those that already have a complete set of plans or for projects that are small in nature, they can directly move to a mutual consent process, and by doing that, they skip the demolition consent. We have also renamed that demolition consent to something that is more in line with the type of approval that we do and not to confuse it with the process that the city follows. And because of that, the new name for this process will be the pre-construction consent. I am available to answer any questions that you may have.
Not so much on the fee schedule itself totally, but in reviewing it, under section 1, I guess it's on page 13 or 14, you talk about specifically about the solar panel installation request, and I'd like to make sure that's going to be capped the same way the cities are by the state. State has certain limitations on how much a city can charge, and I'd like to be in parallel with that so we don't end up with the same problem we had prior where we are charging $750 and the city's charging $250. I think it becomes a little unreasonable, so I'd like just to kind of add that cap in if we can.
So if I may, the board approved a revision to the fee schedule that in essence caps the fee for solar applications to $223, and that is the only fee that is charged.
Yes, but it says it will be adjusted annually and with the new bill rates, but that could mean it could bump up over the city cap. And I would like to keep in parallel if possible with the city cap, that's all, as mandated by the state.
Okay, we can make...
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that suggestion. Anybody else? Okay, all right. We'll help out by providing you the wording that we'd like to see. Yeah.
For the next, or prior to the adoption of this item, should this be approved for 28-day review, we will include the proper language to cap that fee.
Okay, thanks. All right. Any other questions, comments for Bart? I actually had a couple. Can you clarify the regulated materials hold mentioned on the staff report on page 4 of 14? As per current standard procedure, a regulated materials hold will be placed on the manner at the time the mutual consent for alteration work is issued, ...
Yes, I'll be happy to explain that. What we do is we make a notation on Stellar, which is the program that all of our work centers use, and makes a note that there is going to be a potential disturbance of regulated materials to check before they go into either perform a scheduled maintenance or to do an inspection, so that in the event that that work is taking place, they are not exposed to that regulatory material. That is the intent of that note.
Okay. And you have processes in place to set it correctly and remove it appropriately?
Correct.
Okay, all right, got it. Is there a conformance fee still required for mutual consents?
So that is no longer required.
Okay, okay, all right. So I would direct you kind of outside of this specific issue to check out the website, because I think it still mentions that there is one. I can help point you to where that is as well. Okay, got it. And that was all I had. Any other? Okay. Jim?
With what Ira had suggested, are we able to just change the wording in the resolution so that it can go forward today by simply adding where it talks about the amount of $223 to be adjusted annually, just put in the words not to exceed statutory limitations applied to cities?
That's my thinking, yes. And continue to approve this if the board so chooses to. I mean, I think it's a very minor change. Any other comments, questions? Okay, any questions from members? Okay. I guess I need a motion to approve this and submit it forward for 28-member review and comment.
So moved.
Jim moves.
Second.
And Chris seconds. Thank you.
With the necessary changes.
Okay, with those requested changes, great. And so, hearing no further comments, it's now time for us to vote on this. And again, we're voting on whether to put this new process of eliminating this demolition consent, renaming it to a pre-construction mutual consent, kind of giving an option on 28-day member review.
And just to add to that, what we're trying to do is take the terminologies and separate it from the city terminologies so that it deletes confusion, much as what we've done with permit and mutual consent.
All right. Minimizing confusion is always a good thing.
Jules, can you provide your vote for this item?
Missing somebody. Kush?
It's not there?
No.
I did.
Yeah, just,
There we go,
Okay,
we have
there
it.
you go.
Thank you.
okay, all right. Yes. All right, so this one also passed, 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 abstention. Thank you, board. Moving on to agenda item 10C. This is for the board to entertain a motion to approve a revision to architectural standard 31 for washer and dryer installations. Most specifically, these changes would allow the installation of quiet water-wise washers and dryers into 3-story buildings. These updates were suggested by the ACSC, and today the board will be voting as to whether or not to submit this revised standard forward for 28-day member review and comment. Bart, you want to update us on this one as well?
Mr. President, members of the board, this is an item that we have been working with for quite some time. We have received comments from members and directors. We have incorporated all of those comments into the proposed standard. It covers all types of contingencies and is very restrictive in its application. The belief is that if a member who applies for the installation of a washer dryer in a 3-story building will actually end up improving the drainage system rather than hindering it or putting it at risk. With that, I am available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Bart. Anybody have any questions for Bart on this? Okay, I actually have a few. On 2.6, it says essentially something such like, the washer needs to be the quietest on the market or meet these decibel levels. And my question is, what if the quietest one on the market costs $30,000 because it's fancy, quick, real quiet, but another one that meets the decibel levels, meaning is quiet, quieter than the upper decibel levels, only costs $5,000. Would we require the member to purchase a $30,000 unit?
The unit that we will require is the one that meets the decibel requirements and the efficiency requirements, not the dollar value.
Okay, then I might suggest that the line that says it must be the quietest on the market should be eliminated. It should just be it needs to fit within these decibel levels. Again, that was 2.6 if you look in, but we can look at that later. Can you tell me more about exterior cabinets? I don't know that I've seen one of those. So what is an exterior cabinet? One that's actually outside but in a box somehow?
One application, that we have a few of them, that you install a washer dryer within your patio area. It needs to be screened from view, so it has an enclosure. So that is the type of application. I have not seen any requests recently for those. We know that we have some that are existing.
Okay, and we want to continue to allow them, it sounds like. Okay, got it. And then one last question, there's a reimbursement of epoxy lining costs. Who initiates that?
So that will be automatic. Once we will keep track of the request for installation and its completion, and staff will also monitor the schedule for the epoxy lining of the waste lines. And if it happens to be within the 5-year period, we will initiate the reimbursement.
Okay, all right. I hear you. I just have had some experiences that our tools aren't the best, so I'm just worried that might get missed. But we got some new systems coming in place, so hopefully they'll take care of that. And why not wait till the mutual actually relines it versus providing the reimbursement during the same year it's supposed to be relined, since we know that sometimes we budget to have things relined, but for various reasons they aren't. I mean, I don't know if there was a specific decision made to choose to reimbursement in the year it's budgeted to be realigned versus the year it was executed as realigned. I'm sorry,
I understand the question and appreciate that. And the intent is to complete the relining of all of the waste lines the year in which it is budgeted.
Okay.
The difference is with this provision, it allows for the reimbursement to take place as soon as the budget is in effect. So it will be January 1 will be the time. We could have waited until the actual building is relined, which would have been 6, 7, 8 months later. The reimbursement will still be processed, but if we start early, it will allow us time to properly process that within the same fiscal year. If we wait until it is completed, the reline may extend towards December, and then we are talking about carrying over some balances over the following year.
Okay.
That complicates things.
Okay, I got it. Okay, so it sounds like we're kind of you doing that. The wording is that way to speed the process up for our members so that they get reimbursed as soon as possible. Got it? Thank
Correct.
you. All right.
Mark,
Yes, Kush?
if I may ask a question.
Yes, you may. I'm done.
Okay. Thank you. I may be a little behind in all this, but do we have a list in some form that those buildings that are already relined, where people can opt to put a washer or dryer in it? Whereby, I'm talking from the point of view from a real estate person who might be trying to sell a unit in a building which the buyer may be requesting to put a washer dryer, and that's what is required, right?
No.
No?
No.
if they want to put a washer dryer in the unit?
No, that's one of the conditions, that if it has been done within the last 5 years, it might be a little less expensive for them. If it hasn't been done within the last 5 years, they have to, the member that wants to do this, I believe, has to get an engineer to check out the pipes and confirm that the pipes will support the flow of that
Got it.
specific
But-
washer. But to answer your question, we have lists, yes, I've shared those in the past. I know that Bart and his team keep track of them. I'm not
Okay.
sure the most effective way to get them to realtors might be. So that's something that you and I can talk about and think
Okay.
about.
All right.
Yeah, but we know, we know.
I'm sure we do.
Which ones and what years and all those things.
Correct, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, good. Andy?
It seems the engineer is very important here, whoever that is. Is there any, for the homeowners who might be interested in doing this, is there any kind of vetting of engineers that's, is there any vetting of the engineers that might sign off on this?
So you may search for a company that specializes in this area, but a properly registered engineer will not perform outside of his training and abilities. They are required to exercise their practice within their specialty. Yes, an engineer, by virtue of being a registered engineer, is qualified to provide those services.
Okay, so there is a hoop to jump through, but if they do that, if the engineer is acceptable, how does the homeowner know the engineer is acceptable?
And so they can check online. The state has a website that lists all of the engineers that are registered with the state. It's an easy search to determine if the engineer is registered.
So Andy, there's no vetting by the village or manner alterations of engineers, if that's what you're asking.
So basically, you go on the internet and type in professional engineer. Okay.
So
All
it
right.
sounds like perhaps what you're getting to is, what if I hire an engineer, the engineer tells me the pipes are good, I go ahead and install this and turn it on and it floods the building.
That could happen,
You know,
yeah.
who's responsible for that?
Don't know.
Well,
Okay, all right.
Yeah, the member, the engineer,
Buyer beware.
Yeah, the member is, the member should go after their engineer, but that may not be the easiest thing to always do, but yes. So
There's no kind of bond, is there a
Legit.
bond that they would sign, or provide to protect injured parties? For example, the engineer messes up, happens, do they normally sign a bond that provides some insurance or?
So the type of insurance that an engineer carries is the errors and omissions. And errors and omissions covers any claims for anything that the engineer may do wrong. And as President Mark stated, the member can file a claim against the engineer and his errors and omissions insurance to recover any expenses.
All right, so there is a certain level of responsibility for the homeowner regarding this, that this is important that you get the right people to sign off on this stuff, because stuff happens, and you're going to, ultimately, you'll be on the hook first. So buyer beware. Anyway, I think it's great, that we have professionals involved, and a lot of people are concerned about this, that don't have washers, that won't have a washer, and they're concerned about it. And I just hope we have enough safeguards in there to meet those concerns. Thank you.
And if I may, that is precisely one of the reasons why we required a professional engineer rather than a plumber to certify that the pipes are okay. That it's a higher level of responsibility that is added by requiring an engineer to provide that review. For an engineer, it will not be that difficult of a review as they will take into account fixture counts and pipe sizes and losses. But a plumber will not be able to do that, and that's why we incorporated that requirement.
Okay, and Jim, you had,
And basically, the mutual is not going to provide a mutual consent for installing the washer and dryer unless they have stamped calculations from a certified engineer that's licensed in the state of California.
That's important.
good, Ralph?
If I recall correctly, the, it is not a licensing per se, but the word registration, state registration might be applicable in there. It's really a registration, it's not, as I recall, it's not a licensing. It amounts to that, but wording is not licensed.
SK?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm behind of this story so far, and I'd like to ask two questions. First, professional engineer, so what? What kind of engineer we're talking about? Flow study engineer or structural engineer, what? And the second question is, when we have a GVA meeting, do we have a result of their consensus or result? I'd like to invite Mr. Stewart to give us a word about what the Garden Villa Association people's thinking about this installation.
Yeah, we'll get to member comments momentarily. We're just kind of getting through the board first.
Okay.
Okay. So now your first question,
First question is engineer. So what? What kind of engineer we're talking about? Do we have a specific engineer study on this water flow or noise levels study engineer? What? We're talking about noise level. What decibel level we are talking about? It depends on the situation. Federal government agent, I forgot the agency name, popular name, but that agency level, 75 decibel level, is quite a bit level. If you install that kind of machine in the Garden Villa Association, I guarantee you that level you may not be able to tolerate during the quiet time. So if we go simply about the decibel level for the dryer or washer, we're making noise. Garden Villa Association building. That's my comment. Thank you.
okay, thanks. Yeah, I think the engineer was for the water flow, not the sound. I think the sound is based upon my understanding, and Bart can correct me if I'm incorrect, based upon the unit that you buy and the packaging or specifications of that unit. If it says it's, that it's a certain decibel level, if it's underneath what's in the standard, then it's acceptable. If it's not, it wouldn't be. That's my understanding. Is that correct?
And that is correct.
Okay.
Yes, but my point is, depend on the situation and the condition where you're at. If you're in the quiet time, having a, let's say, 25 decibel level of noise, you may hear, everybody will hear that noise. Is that tolerable in the resident area? I think we are too much dwell on the decibel level, the 75 decibel level.
73.
73, whatever. That is quite a bit noise level.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the resident area, I'm talking about 73 level, is quite a bit noise. You may not be able to tolerate.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Thanks, SK. Ralph, did you have more?
Two items. I think if you're talking about a state-registered engineer, I believe you're limited to mechanical, civil, or electrical, and structural within the civil. I think that's, as I recall, that's the only registration you have. They used to have a whole slew of them, but they don't anymore. That does not mean you don't want an experienced sound engineer. The other question I have is, How about the sound transmission through the framework, the woodwork? Does that take it into account? These buildings were not made for being particularly quiet. There's not a lot of sound insulation in the walls, so the structure itself can be transmitting the sound.
Absolutely.
So one of the sections that was added as a result of those concerns was to bring the flooring to residential standards. So the flooring in a way is reinforced to dampen some of that noise that is generated.
Ira?
And with regards to the noise, we have global noise limitations right now, and these washers and dryers cannot exceed that limit to become a nuisance for anybody. So that's already in place. So if you were to play your television or your stereo or whatever at a very high loudness level, that would be a nuisance now. And so you cannot have anything, whether it's a washer or dryer, whether it's a television, exceeding that decibel level that we have already established as reasonable for the entire village. So that's already intact. It doesn't matter what decibel level the washer and dryer is, as long as they are below or at or below the established level we already have now for nuisance.
Jim, you had something you want to say?
Yeah, and to give you a reference, normal human speech is anywhere from 50 to 70 decibels. So that's the decibel range for just people talking. And so 73 decibels for a washing machine is barely over normal human conversation.
I am surprised that 73 is a normal human voice level. I
50
am
to 70.
surprised. I need to study a little bit further on that one.
Sure. Yeah, good. Sounds good. All right, any other comments? All right, I think we're going to have some, thank you, Bart. I think maybe we should get a motion, and then we'll get some member comments. So the motion,
Before we do the motion,
Oh, you
can we
had some more?
change the wording in 2.6 to take out after ceiling floors, line through the rest of that sentence, the next sentence, and the first two words of the next sentence, so that it reads, with common walls, ceiling, floors, washer must not exceed 73 decibels, and the dryer 65 decibels.
sounds great. You're addressing the comment that I had. Why does the dryer have to be quieter than the washer?
Because of manufacturers, you can get a quieter dryer.
Okay,
So it runs longer.
okay, all right, just curious.
So with that, I'll make a motion
Okay.
to approve.
Okay, to approve for 28-day member review and comment. Anybody second? Ira, thanks. All right, any final board comments before we open it up to members? Okay, I'm going to open things up to members. Similar to our open forum, I'm going to ask that we limit this to 30 minutes and 3 minutes per person speaking or letter being read.
We have 3 in-person speakers and then 1 email for this
Okay,
item.
that's all. All right, good. We should be just fine then.
First speaker is David Gorovitz.
Good morning. My name is David Gorovitz, 4009. Just a couple of comments. First, I'd like to let the board know that throughout the last year of this process, recently I did hire someone, professional, to come out and look at my pipes, to put a camera through them. And I have a report that states that I'm on the 3rd floor of a 3-story building, by the way, but the pipes are large enough, they meet code, and they're ready to go. The second item is, let's talk about an engineer, mechanical engineers who I've worked with the last 30 years here in Los Angeles, are very capable of determining pipe size and whether they meet the codes or not. They do this every day in buildings, and often plumbing contractors or mechanical contractors that we see in the village actually have on staff registered mechanical engineers who are capable of certifying the work done. So to Andy's concern, you can get yourself a mechanical contractor to come in and do the work. They have to meet all the standards, all the bonding, and they also may or may not have a mechanical engineer on staff to certify what's there. The other is just like to comment on the noise. I actually took a sound meter. I went into our washer dryers and our units out in the public area. They were louder than the units that I went to the manufacturer's showroom, turned on a washer dryer, and put the same sound meter, and they were actually less noisy in the showroom without any pads, without any vibration isolation. So the other is I'd just like to thank, I think these are great standards. I think they show a concern for everybody, and I hope that you vote for the amendment. Thank you.
Next speaker is Ro Kendall.
Good morning, President and board members. As a first floor resident of a garden villa unit, I am very much opposed to this introduction of additional possibilities for water damage in our buildings. We have enough water damage from pipes that have been epoxied without adding the additional problem, which is possible. I don't care how many bonds or guarantees or whatever you get, accidents happen. And when they happen, they affect so much of your personal life. It's unbelievable. I had a very small leak from someone's sink upstairs, and it wasn't due to an epoxy issue. They just had a bad drain. But it took 6 weeks to get it resolved. They opened the walls. They had to replace things. They had to dry it out. We had those noises forever. It's just not a small thing. Another person on a first floor unit in our building had to move out of their unit for months because they had a backup on the waste lines, and the water came up and ruined the entire unit. They had to replace all the floors, all the cabinets. It's, you know, when we bought into these units, we knew that we were using public washers and dryers. I mean, it's not public. These are like, you become an extended family. It's not public. But in terms of, if it's really important to you to have your own washer and dryer, then perhaps a three-story building is not your best option. If this goes through, I don't think that members of the third floor should be even allowed to have an opinion on this, because they're not going to be subject to the damage that can and will occur. It's just nature. It's just Murphy's Law. Whatever's going to go wrong is going to go wrong. And if it affects other people, it's really not fair if it can be avoided. And if it does go through, who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for the damage in my home? And then we have insurance claims to think about. We're already in such dangerous areas for insurance in the state of California. The more claims we have, the more they're going to back off. So there's so many reasons not to. Just for the convenience of a few elite people that live on third floors, I don't think it's fair, and I am very, very much opposed to it. So that's about it, I guess.
All right, thank you.
So thank you. Oh, one other point. I'd like to know if there was an analysis of leaks in epoxied buildings and where we could find that information, because we are told that leaks don't happen in epoxied buildings, and I know that's not true. So please let us have that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Final in-person speaker is Stuart Hack.
Good morning. So I'm speaking on behalf of the Gardenville Association. I guess the biggest problem is the process here. Gardenville Association had made some comments and requests, and in fact, they are not all in the proposed resolution here. In fact, we've not been involved at all in this process. And I know you don't have to involve us, but we're the ones affected by it, not you. I'm concerned about the statement, buyer beware. No, it's everybody else in the building beware. The buyer knows what he's taking on. The people in the building don't know what he's taking on. And they're going to suffer from any mistakes, any miscalculation. When you talk about decibel level noise, I think you're missing the point. The point is, are we producing additional noise that doesn't exist today? Are we producing additional risk of water damage that doesn't exist today? Not a comparison. It's this didn't exist yet, and we're now going to make it exist. Now, I don't know what the Gardenville Association will is going to be on this. I found out that this was coming up because I regularly, a couple days before your board meeting, pulled the package. That's how I know about it. How many people even know about it at this point? So we were going to bring this up at the Gardenville Association board meeting, but that's a couple weeks away. And our preference would be to be able, Jim, to work with your committee. Our preference would be to be able to iron things out before we get to this point, rather than this being a us against you situation. We should be working together. So this exterior cabinets, that's brand new. Now you're talking about allowing additional washers and dryers on balconies. So when I'm sitting outside drinking some wine, I can be disturbed from a way I never could be disturbed before. So those are the issues. And I think we're far better served to work together on this. Thank you.
And that is all.
Did you say one email?
There is one email, sorry. It is from Alvin Wolf, and they said, 2/3 mutual meeting statements. 1, applicants to have washers, dryers in their manor shall bear all costs to have their plumbing stacks brought to accepted standards and maintained at those standards. There are to be no costs placed on the general member's budget dues. 2, manors using washers should pay a water usage surcharge since they will use more water than the other manors. Other manors should not have to bear the cost of subsequent higher water usage. Questions. Members doing laundry in their manors reduces the number of members using the common laundry facilities. What will the consequences on the quality, upkeep, and cost of using the common laundry facilities? What is the probability that if the common laundry usage decreases, vendors providing common laundry room services will withdraw? Second question, washers, dryers used in manors may cause noise and vibrations throughout the buildings. What will be required to prevent these nuisances? And third, what will be the impact on the pipe system when different engineers work on its different parts? And that is all.
All right, any other comments or questions based upon those comments or anything else? SK, start with you. Saw your hand first.
Yes, I live in Gardenville Association building. And you all, I believe not, please, I want to make it short, vote no on this one. Because we don't want to get disturbed. Additionally, we have on the and old buildings. And I believe when I went out, dryer goes around, washer goes around, a lot of noise, a lot of noise. My wife doesn't want to wash and dryer even after 7 or 8 o'clock at night. In the morning, she doesn't want to do it because it will disturb other people. Please be considered to Garden Villa residents. You all not in Garden Villa associations. Thank you.
Okay, Jim, and then Jules?
Yeah, just to clarify, this is standard 31 for all washer and dryer installations. Item 3.0, exterior cabinets, has nothing to do with the three-story buildings. It's a separate entity. Most of what was changed on here was for three-story buildings. We tried to accommodate all the concerns from different members. And to say we haven't been working with Garden Villa Association, we had a whole open forum where I monitored it and had questions and answers. And those questions and answers and concerns were all listened to, put into effect, and considered in writing this up. So to say that haven't been informed, you don't have the time, that's not true. We've worked on this, trying to accommodate all the concerns. And this today gives another 28 days for those concerns to be brought up. So just to try and clarify.
Okay. And Jules?
I would like to move to table this matter so that the Garden Villa Association can take an actual position on it and bring it to us.
All right, I'm not sure how, you have to read your cheat sheet, Ira. What do we do in such a way? Have a motion on the board to vote for 28-day member review and approval. Why don't we vote on that? And if it, based upon hearing what you had to say, if it doesn't pass, then perhaps we take your position, Jules. Any other questions, comments? Okay, all right, so again, the motion that we're going to be voting on is whether or not to implement this new policy, but whether to put this policy on 28-day member review and comment so that we then start eliciting more members' comments as need be. Yeah? Okay.
So run that by again, which one we're voting on? This is just to move this through as is? Or
With that one change of removing the, quietus on the market comment, and just moving it forward for 28-day member review and comment.
Mark, what was your vote?
I'm still thinking.
Okay.
It's a tough one. So I'm going to vote yes to put it on 28-day member review and comment. I don't think I will be, at this point, not comfortable voting with it 28
Ralph,
days
you
from
abstain?
now. But, so, again, we're not.
And Ira?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, there's one missing, isn't there, or is we here? Okay,
Kush,
no,
you
we're
abstain? What's your vote, Kush?
yes, he abstained.
Abstain? Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, all right. So it passes by a vote of 5 yeses, 3 noes, and 1 abstention. Okay, so again, this is going to be discussed again next month. And we will see if what we decide at that point. Yeah, thank you, board. Yeah. Moving on to agenda item 10D, for the board to entertain a motion to approve updates to third stepping stone approval process and guidelines. This request was submitted to the board by the landscape committee. Last month, the board voted to submit this forward for member review and comment, and today we'll be voting as to whether or not to accept these updates for third mutual members. We'd like to start this agenda item by asking Chris to read the resolution for us, please.
Okay. Excuse me. Stepping Stone Policy and Guidelines. Whereas on January 16, 2007, that the Board of Directors adopted Resolution 030702, approval to revoke Alteration Standard Section 36, Stepping Stones, and whereas Resolution 030702 revoked the standard for stepping stones and required a variance application to the Architectural Committee. And whereas the Landscape Committee determined that stepping stones are temporary in nature and are placed within common area landscaping, and whereas the Landscape Committee determined that requiring a landscape request form application may unduly restrict may be duly restrictive during the resale process and could be simplified by landscape management review. Now therefore be it resolved, October 17, 2023, the Board of Directors introduces the change from mandatory landscape request form and consideration thereof shall be performed by landscape management, and resolve further, all new stepping stone installations shall be performed following the attached stepping stone guidelines, and all existing stepping stone installations not approved by variance or standard shall be reviewed by landscape management staff for adherence to the stepping stone guidelines. And resolve further, all existing stepping stones installations not previously approved by variance or standard and found not in adherence to the stepping stone guidelines may be reviewed through the landscape request form process. And further resolved, Resolution 03-22-17, adopted February 15, 2022, is hereby superseded in its entirety and no longer in effect. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Can I get a motion to approve these updated stepping stone process and guidelines? Before we discuss it further, Ira moves and SK seconds. Thank you. You see your hands. Thank you both. Yeah, I mean, I think in summary, I think one of the key things about this, did you want to say something, Ira?
I just wanted to, clarify this is basically just to create more efficiencies for resales, as well as if the landscape department comes across something that has not been filed with their department, they can make decisions without having to come to the committee, without having to come to the board, and it just makes more sense for everybody, rather than forcing a owner to remove it and then apply to put it back in. So decisions can be made quickly, easily, and by the people that need to make them.
Okay, great. That's kind of what I was going to say. Thank you. Any questions, comments from members of the board on this? Okay, all right. Any member comments on this topic?
No, we do not have a member comment on this topic, but there is a member who I believe showed up past open forum, and they have an item that they'd like to speak on.
Okay. That's this one standing here, Mr. Coe?
Yes, yes.
All right. We'll put them on after agenda item 10, all the 10s.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, he was here. I think he just failed to fill out the form, so I did see him come in. Okay. So it's if you're unfamiliar with the process, that happens. All right. So I guess the motion is to vote on implementing these updated stepping stones process and guidelines. It's now time to vote. All right. And Passed by a vote of 9 yeses, which is all of us, 0 and 0, 0 noes, 0 abstentions. Thank you, board. And the last unfinished business is agenda item 10E, which is for the board to entertain a motion to approve a new herbicide spray guidelines and its accompanying agreement form. This request was submitted by the Landscape Committee. Last month, the board voted to submit this forward to member review and comment. And today we'll be listening to some of those comments and then voting and to whether or not to accept this new policy for third members. Chris, would you please read us this resolution?
Wait, weren't we going to, oh, we have one more?
Uh-huh.
Oh, the herbicide.
Herbicide spray cessation guidelines. Whereas due to staffing levels and the proliferation of invasive kikuyu grass, the only practical way to control weeds in the shrub beds and turf edges is the use of herbicides. And whereas some members of Third Mutual have requested that staff not use herbicides in the shrub beds adjacent to their respective units. And whereas due to the increased labor associated with hand weeding shrub beds, residents requesting the cessation of herbicide application adjacent to their units should be responsible for the timely removal of weeds and maintenance of the turf edges at their shrub beds, and whereas said members of Third Mutual making such requests shall fill out and sign an agreement stating their intention and responsibility to perform the weeding and edging of the shrub beds. And whereas the Landscape Department shall retain the responsibility for regular pruning of shrubs and the right to apply herbicides to turf areas, insecticides when necessary. Now therefore be it resolved, October 17, 2023, the Board of Directors introduces the ability to request cessation of herbicide applications in the shrub bed areas following the filing of a signed no herbicide agreement. And resolve further, all responsibility of weeding and turf edging in the shrub beds shall become the responsibility of the requesting resident. And resolve further, all other routine maintenance of the shrub beds shall remain the responsibility of the Landscape Department. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution.
Great, thank you, Chris. Can I get a motion to approve this before we discuss it further? Ira moves, SK seconds. Thank you both. So again, this is the Landscaping Department's attempt to facilitate members' requests who do not like herbicides sprayed around their manor. So this gives them the option of allowing that as long as they take responsibility for their own weeding in the area that is not being sprayed. So that's effectively what it is. Any questions, comments from staff? Okay, Ira?
I just want to clarify that the Landscape Department has tried other methods on these soft edges, which has resulted by mechanical use rather than herbicide spray. And what was happening is that due to the rocky nature of our soil, they were getting at least one broken window a week, which wasn't good for anybody. The mechanical means of cutting the soft edges, which would be similar to the hard edges where turf meets, let's say, a parking lot or a walkway, the spinning blade was throwing projectiles in every direction. So happily only windows got broken and nobody's head. And that's why they stopped using it and went to this method. And that's all.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if there's any way we can expand this to not only herbicides, but pesticides. Are pesticides a subset of herbicides, or are they completely separate? I'm kind of asking staff.
Okay, I don't know that there's, oh, we got Bob here.
Yeah.
Come on up, Bob, see if you can address that question for us. Thank you.
Good morning, President and directors. Can you hear me? I'm under 24. So the question, herbicides versus pesticides. So basically, the difference is you're treating, let's say, a weed versus ants or versus mealybugs or versus whitefly, along those lines. So this resolution does state that ants will still be sprayed in the area. And the residents will sign that form stating that ant spray will still be conducted in the area. It's hard to isolate when you start to do the pesticides like for ants and so forth, to stop at one building and start up at another building or manor, and the tracking and the movement of the ants is not going to just stop from point A to point B. So that is part of the agreement that the residents have. It's basically just for the weed control.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. And so just if you don't mind, I can add a little bit how we're going to monitor this. So we've created an event code in Stellar to where when a resident calls in requesting this, there is that specific event code. It comes up in red. And once they call, staff goes out, meets with the resident, has the form in hand, explains everything on the form, explains how it's going to be maintained by them. We determine where the flag boundaries are going to be presented based on their common area, not affecting the resident next to them or the resident on the other side. We take pictures of those flags so we know the right locations. And then that gets submitted back into Stellar. We scan that form in, and then we have a list that we put out for the foremans and the crews and the pest control people, so they know not to do anything. That manor has flags, and if there's a question as to the flag being moved, the picture will state that the resident was contacted, resident agreed to those flags being in that specific spot, and then we would make contact with the resident if those were moved to a longer or wider area.
So those flags are going to be there in perpetuity, essentially, right?
Yes. So a scenario would be the resident requests it, 5 years later they move out, they sell the manor, and the other resident has.
I understand. I'm just
Yeah.
picturing a mutual with flags all over the place, little no spray zone flags. So what happens if somebody forgets or sprays or isn't paying attention? One of the landscaper sprayers sprays where there's a no spray zone.
So that we would be contacted by either the resident or by the foreman. There'd be an office discussion for the individual doing it. We have designated people that do spraying. So basically the list that in their particular area, depending on one of the 8 areas that particular spray tech does, he will have a list knowing what areas not to spray.
Okay. But it could happen. So mistakes may happen. So everybody's going to be trained.
Yes.
All right. Again, I'm just kind of throwing this stuff out so we can all kind of get a picture of what we're talking about versus taking picture and then taking the flags out and somebody would know. Ira?
So right now, you put up flags as you're doing an area. So you're saying this will be different, but these flags would remain?
Yes.
Okay, versus being put up as the other flags are being put up as a check, if you will, on which areas should and shouldn't be done. As Mark said, these flags could go missing or whatnot, so I was wondering if that may not be the best way just to leave them there, to do what you do now and have that list in the area or mapped, however you're going to do it. Using myself as an example, you're going to be doing my area now, and basically I'm delineated by having no flags around my building. So wouldn't it be better to have a check on this by putting up those no spray zone flags as you put up the other ones, so the spray tech will know, just as a reminder, oh yeah, this place, oh, there's a flag missing, I got to put it in, rather than saying a flag missing and making a mistake. And that's all I'm getting at.
Well, early on, maybe that would be a way to do it as this progresses down the road and there's more and more residents doing it, and the residents are probably getting a better feel that it's not going to be sprayed if those flags remain. There's constant flags throughout the community. Every time that we go out and spray, we leave those flags up for 3 days afterwards as a reminder for pet owners that we were in the area spraying. So I guess to do a different format, I would certainly have to wait for Kurt to come in there and make some recommendations.
So as of right now, you're talking about a lot. Roughly, if you know, how many units in Third are requesting not to be sprayed?
The last time I checked, and I can't tell between Third and United, but when I went on on Stellar, there was approximately 5 or 6, and I can't tell you how many of those were Third or United. I could certainly get that number.
A very small amount, you're saying?
Yeah.
For the moment. Jim?
Yeah, I think if they had to put these flags out each time, it would be manpower intensive because they'd have to refer to the drawings or the maps or that. And I think we're going to find once we put this on 28-day notice, or once we approve this, it's going to be publicized, and I think you'll get a lot more requests because people are just requesting randomly now. Now that it's a policy, I think you'll get a lot of requests.
And I think it could be less of a possibility of mistakes being made if the flags remain there constantly, rather than the tech having to remember each time. If we have a backup tech that's trained and the other tech's on vacation, the flags being there is an instant recognition that there's no spraying there.
Yeah, and I would agree.
I'm just looking at it from mowers chewing them up, depending on where they're placed, and just random acts of them going missing, which can happen. Because right now there is, we'll see how many of them.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
We'll see how many.
Understood your comments. I'm trying to move this along a little because we do have some member comments. So again, this is on 28-day member review now. So today we will be voting for it. Some members have been informed that it's out there being discussed. So how many emails do you have, Michaela?
I'd say roughly 15.
Okay, all right. Hopefully you can keep them all to somewhat short time
Yes.
frame. because
Yeah.
I'm gonna
A
time
lot
you-
of them are a sentence or two as
Oh, okay.
well, so
Okay,
they should
great.
be pretty quick. There is someone on Zoom, I believe, who wants to speak, so I'm going to pull them in first.
Okay. And again, a 30-minute limit to this as well, so we can try to move along. 30 total, three minute per person, sorry, 30-minute total. I'm more worried about the total here.
Saying you are able to speak, can you unmute yourself?
All right. Sang Yoon, we see you on Zoom, see your hand raised, but you're on mute. So you'll have to click a unmute button. While they're working out their technical difficulties, can you please?
Yes, the first email is from Julie Garcia, and they said, it's still poison and it's being used in place of an edger. That's not good for anyone. It looks horrible as they leave the dead grass, weeds, and flowers they've killed. They were here yesterday and still didn't clean it. Next one is from Beverly Miller. And they said, I can't believe that the board is even considering this proposal. You have just raised the homeowner dues for next year to cover increased expenses, and now you want to take away one of the benefits these dues pay for. This is particularly offensive to the majority of Third Mutual residents because you just voted to continue the weekly janitorial services for 3-story buildings. I live in a 6-unit condo, and my cul-de-sac is lucky if we get landscaping services 4 times a year. My neighbors and I take turns sweeping up fallen leaves on the ramps to eliminate a potential fall. Next one's from Lauren Linda. As long As a longtime organic farmer and gardener, I'd be more than happy to weed the small areas around my front gate. I'm strongly opposed to the use of chemical pesticides, herbicides, and rodenticides. Next one's from Diane Triantis, and they said, common areas to be maintained by the HOA. The areas around manors being sprayed are common area not exclusively owned by the occupant of said manor. We all pay dues to the HOA for those areas to be maintained by the HOA. Allowing residents to agree to maintain those areas is a liability in the event said resident hurts themselves doing this work on common area property. Also allows an individual to determine how they want to perform the work regardless of whatever the agreement they signed stipulates, and it creates yet another area that the boards and VMS has to police and regulate. It is the job of landscaping to do this work. When one lives in a condo, co-op, or any sort of common interest development, as we all do here in Laguna Woods, homeowners and residents do not have exclusive use and control over common areas such as the landscaping outside one's unit. Has third board gotten legal input on this proposal? I cannot imagine any attorney worth their fee would recommend going forward with this, nor would I imagine our insurance carrier would be okay with this. What part of liability does the board not understand? Between this idea with landscaping, the allowing of washers and dryers in individual garden villas, and allowing barbecues in multi-level buildings, I seriously question whether third board is getting insurance input, and if so, question and qualifications of those professionals. I very much appreciate a response to the above. Next one's from Bill and Linda Guy. And they said, to all board members, regarding herbicide proposed changes, we oppose changes to the current policy with one exception. We need to be vigilant about the herbicides used. Products used must be safe for humans and animals. We've seen the negative impact on neighborhoods by allowing individuals to change their landscaping and assume care of it. People may have the best intentions to assume this responsibility, but as time moves forward, they most often no longer have the ability to do so. This leads to a deterioration of the overall appearance of the neighborhood, value and quality of life here at Laguna Woods. If we allow individuals the choice to have herbicides used or not around their units, it will result in the same consequences. We request that the current policy remain in place. From Elliot and Diana Light, thank you for sharing this detailed proposal from the board. Our view is that it is reasonable and doable, although we wonder if there might be shortcuts in the process of confirming with residents their agreements and opt-ins. Anyway, you have laid out a thorough plan of all steps that could be necessary. Thank you and the board for your thoughtful consideration work on our behalf. Next one's from Don and Ann Joint. We would like to express our support for the proposed policy allowing third residents to opt out of the spraying of herbicides by landscaping staff around our manor. We appreciate this board's awareness of the problem and the proposed measure to correct the situation. Next one is from Sandy Spector. I wish to have landscape continue spraying the herbicides on a regular basis. I have weeds coming up between the cracks in my sidewalks, and this becomes a slipping or tripping hazard for anyone coming to my manor. This service is part of a landscaping service I pay for in my HOAs. If someone doesn't want the spraying of the herbicides, they should have a sign given to them to place at their manor and or a sign or waiver stating so. The village landscaping service has declined over the years, and this is just another service management is trying to save money on. I'm 85 years old, and there's no way I can pick weeds. I'm against discontinuing the spraying of herbicides. Next one's from Carol Tanner, and they said, assuming the pesticides currently used are not harmful to humans or pets, and assuming those currently concerned are in the hundreds and not thousands, I recommend we keep the current policy versus take on the extra cost of administrative time to follow up with potential anti-insecticide owners who do not maintain the common area adjacent to their unit. In summary, keep the current policy as it is. We have just a few more. Bert Du Bois said, I consider this proposal as nothing shy of blackmail. The spray areas are a potential hazard to pets. Senior residents have pets. In order to keep them healthy and alive, these same seniors have to subject themselves to physical labor. Per your email, residents completes and signs the form acknowledging their responsibility for routine weeding and edging in the impacted areas. Many of those senior citizens have to walk with canes or even walkers. Many are considered handicapped, and yet you would have them subject to physical labor in order to keep their pets alive. This is cruel and unusual punishment for merely asking to keep their pets and maybe themselves safe. When you consider that the entire Third Mutual homeowners are required to pay an approximate additional $75 per year so that a select few residents in the Garden Villa buildings don't have to clean their own laundry rooms, recreation rooms, and lobby areas. This is not an optional thing. Every resident living in any area of Third Mutual must pay for a select few unwilling to collect or to clean after themselves. But in this case, a few elderly who love and want to protect their pets, keep them safe, have to subject themselves to being on their hands and knees to keep weeds out. Many of these people can't walk, but you would subject them to this kind of manual labor. Again, this is cruel and unusual punishment, not befitting any crime, much less an act of love. Please consider this proposal. Next one is from Richard Detour, and they said, I don't support this policy and yet another modification and tweak to a policy. Exception cases for any mutual-wide policy should not be made. We live in a large community, and each policy should be broad-based and cover all residences. Special circumstances will always be raised by a few, but I encourage the third board to be mindful that a majority of residents need to be heard and vote no on special handling clauses being attached to the community-wide practice like weed prevention. And this one's from Loretta Mancini, and they said, hello, on my morning walk today, I couldn't help but notice that there are no yellow herbicide springs on Via Mariposa across from the golf course. As a matter of fact, there were groups of gardeners who were working on edging with edgers, the planter tree circles and irrigation boxes nicely, as well as adding new shrubs. We live off the driveway and not on the main street. Our lawn areas looks awful with the yellow rings of dead grass, especially in front of our manor. I also noticed that some of the overspray is killing grass areas, which makes it look worse. There are several units that have dead bushes or just dirt and no plants around us. So I guess the landscaping budget is dependent on proximity to the golf course. It seems unfair, as we all pay the same HOA fees. And that is all. And it looks like saying Yoon removed themselves from Zoom as well.
It's after, okay, just, all right, thank you. After hearing those comments, any other questions or comments from board members before we vote? Okay, and again, we're voting as to whether or not to approve the implementation of this new process. So I think our screens are going to come up. All right. So voting is complete. 7 yeses, 1 no, and 1 abstention. Thank you, board. All right, that finishes our unfinished business, or concludes our unfinished business. Mr. Code, I'm going to let you come up. You had an open forum comment. Good to see you.
Thank you, President and the board. I was here not too long ago, but I just have to return. Today, Mr. Park kindly call me and saying that he want to see the supposed to be damaged area, and he inspected, and he asked me to come to speak again. Since I had a letter from the appeal board that moisture intrusions, I was a disciplinary hearing determination notice that I got yesterday, and it says important so-and-so. But I came here to explain to you a little more further. It is almost 2 months since the instance of wet from the ceiling, from the roof, not from the tube or neighbors or anything like that. And this is still the dry was never been wet grossly, even though they have a meter say there's a wet there at the time the technician came in, is wet. But still, in 2 months, still there's nothing happened, and it never been, and looks very good. And Mr. Pagan inspected, and he will tell you what he think it is. And another thing is that questioning is, I was questioning myself. According to this letter, I have to initiate this work within 45 days, required within 15 days, and work finished by 45 days and so on. I wonder why it's so anxious to start this and finish it done. It's only 2 months ago, first time it's rained and it's leaked. And graciously, the roof guys came in, and next day, that was August 20th. And all the roof, and they repair everything done. And then we don't have a rain since. We don't know it's going to leaking again. And then also besides that, look at this, never been wet grocery, and still the paint is not changing. Anything is the same thing. And Mr. Park will tell you, accordingly. And then also I asked about this situation to Mr. Yun, the board members and so on, and he sent, I think, email to the board presidents, I think, and that somehow it's not shown up, but this is what it is. Also, SSA, number one, what's the reason that so hurried to tear down these things? Number two is why we should wait for another rainy day to see what's happening. And this is a good thing to save the money, and I see all the budget problem and so on. Instead of wait a little bit, why so hurry and I have to tear down this beautiful ceiling? This is my...
Thank you, Mr. Koho. Appreciate you coming and speaking to us.
I appreciate you invite.
Yeah. Okay. Any comments?
Yes, I do.
Okay, yes.
Okay. I visited this morning, and Mark says it's still wet, but there's no any other adjacent home involved in. So his argument could be acceptable because it's only single home involved in. So I was thinking maybe we can delay or some monthly basis monitoring of the situation until next rain comes. If the next rain comes, no leaking, maybe we can let it dry naturally. I haven't seen, as I look at the ceiling, I didn't see any black spot. So I think we can let it go for a while, see what happens, since it's only single home involved in that rain. That's my comment. Thank you.
All right, okay. So, all right. So, yeah, Mr. Koh, the decision that he's talking about was the Executive Hearing Committee, so he has the option to appeal that decision, and those instructions are on his letter, so he can appeal that decision to the full board, and we can all make a decision as to...
May I ask a question?
Yes, you may. It helps if you just raise your hand just a little higher so I can see.
But you were looking that direction.
No problem.
Okay, anyway. This is a single-family home, and the damage happened, the wall was wet because of rain.
Wall was not involved in, just where the ceiling light is there.
The ceiling got
Yes.
wet because of rain?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that the wall was not wet.
No.
Because if there was still wetness, it could be because of a pinhole leak from a pipe or something.
No, that there's no pipe involved in. It's just a roof.
I just
issue.
wanted to get all the information. I did not know much more about that.
Thanks.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Koh. And we were going to move on. So again, as you were talking with, there's on the letter that you have, there's a process for how you can appeal the decision. So please follow that if you would like, and then the full board will get involved. Okay, thanks. I'm going to move on to agenda item 11, which is the beginning of our new business. Excuse me, I'm all choked up here. Agenda item 11A is for the board to entertain a motion to adopt a 2024 collections and lien enforcement policy. This policy is reviewed and approved yearly and was forwarded to the full board by the Finance Committee. Today we'll be voting as to whether or not to submit this 2024 policy for 28-day member review and comment. Can I get a motion to place this policy on 28-day member review and comment? SK moves and Kush seconds. Thank you both. Any questions from board members? Yes. Go ahead, Kush.
We have a number that says we're going to increase this from $75 to $80, correct?
Correct.
And then the number evaluates to 9.8% of the assessment of the increase, correct?
So it seems. Sorry, I'm not looking at it right this
So my
second.
question is, why don't we increase it to a certain, or agree to a certain percentage number, like 7%, 9%, whatever we want to agree to, so that whether this number, if it goes up or down, that percentage will remain constant, and then we won't have to come back and discuss this anymore.
So this is required to be discussed every year, okay? And so that's why we're doing it. So and if things increased, Steve may come up and kind of help. Why don't you help me out here?
Yeah, help me out to understand this.
Go ahead, Jim.
The reason it was done where it was a dollar figure of a set amount was because it's a round number, rather than us going up to the maximum allowed of 10%, which would be an odd number like $8.23.
It doesn't matter, you pay your sales tax every day on things you buy at a certain fixed percentage. It doesn't matter how much you pay, because it's a fixed percentage. That's why
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
I understand that, but the $8 is when you're getting an invoice from the association and you're the member and you look at it, and having an odd number like $8.23 does, you don't look at it like that. When it's a straight $8, $9, $10, it shows up better for the member to be able to decipher it.
But Jim, next to it, when you write whatever this tax or whatever you want to call this assessment, you write there so much percentage.
So we hear you, Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, you're into 5%, others, and how maybe
I'm
written is
into one fixed percent. So
Right.
if the assessment goes up or down, the percentage remains the same.
So we'll let Steve chat
Sure.
through that.
Thank you. So historically, it's always been a fixed dollar amount, $60, $75, and now $80. But I hear what you're saying. So when we submitted this over to legal counsel for their review, they'd stricken the $80 and replaced it with 10%, which is what is listed in Civil Code. So as the policy is currently written in the red line version, it is the 10%. So if you go along with what is recommended in the current policy, the red line version, the monthly late charge would be $81.58. So that would be the monthly charge.
Okay, so it is by percentage. Currently, it's kind of odd looking at some is in blue, some is in red, so it's difficult for us to read.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so the clean version at the back of the attachment is just the 10%.
Okay. Okay, so 10% it is, Kush.
Fine, then we have to agree to that number to keep it at 10, or do we want to reduce it to 9 or to reduce it to 7?
Right.
So it is up to us to decide. But my point was, instead of having a number.
We got your point.
Yes, so that's what I'm trying to
Okay,
do.
and what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah,
Your point has been, it seems like, is what the document reads. So again, it was confusing to some of us whether it was $80 or not. Okay. So any further questions, comments on this one? Again, it's kind of a standard thing. Okay. Any member comments on this, Michaela? Can't imagine. Ready? I guess I need a motion, don't I? No, we got it. Motion SK and good. All right.
So
I'm with it.
Do we want to make that change to a percentage?
It
or
is
do we
already
want-
percentage. is what Steve said.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But the discussion section is showing that we are moving from $75 to $80. So what is it going to be when we say yes to the motion?
Yeah, so Steve, again, very confusing.
Sure.
I think
So-
we need to do a better job in the staff report next time. Red font, blue font doesn't help anybody. To get to this point, I understand there was red and blue at the Finance Committee, but once the Finance Committee made the determination, we should have, is there a clean version in this?
Yes. The clean-
Okay.
yeah, the
And
clean
what
ver-
attachment is it?
So the clean version is attachment 2, and it begins on page. It begins on page 18.
And where is the 10% noted?
Sure. The 10% will be found on page 20, second paragraph. A late payment charge for a delinquent assessment will be assessed an amount equal to 10% of the delinquent assessment or $10, whichever is greater.
Okay.
So in this instance, the $81.50, forgive me, whatever the change was. So, and the only real difference, forgive me, Kush, with regards to the $80 that's referenced on the staff report, if you recall in the Finance Committee meeting, we brought forth a recommendation for the $80 charge, but then we also mentioned that that day we received a response from legal counsel, and we brought forward the red line version that stricken the stricken the $80 and replaced it with a flat 10%. And that's what the Finance Committee agreed to,
Okay.
or approved at that meeting on October
So
3rd.
I have one more question. Something else popped up in my head. That will this be the assessment late charge will be changing from $75 to $80. So what will be the lowest amount?
The charge would change, if approved by the board after it goes through 28 days, it will go from $75 to $81 and
Whatever cents.
whatever cents. Mhm.
Right. So that's the lowest amount. What I'm trying to say is it will be so much or the lowest will be so much, that type of thing. It could be higher but not less.
It'll be the same amount every single month.
Okay.
So your assessment is, again, $815.82, so it'll be 10% of that amount.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, someone's voting already, all right? Okay, why don't we go ahead and vote? Again, we're voting on whether or not to put this forward for 28-day member review and comment.
Missing Kush.
Moon's vote and Cush's
It
vote.
doesn't work on the first try.
Okay, so thumbs up or thumbs down, Moon, to?
Did it go through?
Yes,
Yes.
Cush, yours is in.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so this passed. 10 votes yes. Thank you, board. Agenda item 11B is for the board to entertain a motion to approve, thanks, Steve, updated schedule of monetary penalties. These updates were suggested by the Resident Policy and Compliance Committee and were further endorsed by the Finance Committee. And today we will be voting as to whether or not to submit this updated schedule of monetary penalties forward for 28-day member review and comment. Lucille, you want to give us a quick update on what this is all about? Please?
Good morning, Board. So the Resident Policy and Compliance Committee reviewed the schedule of monetary penalties and made the recommendation to increase the minimum from $25 to $50 and the maximum to $2,000 from $500. And the committee approved this update, and then the Finance Committee approved it as well, and now it's here for the board for approval. Again, the monetary penalties is always imposed by the board through the disciplinary process. It's not imposed by staff.
Okay. And it's arranged where the Executive Hearing Committee and/or the board get to
Make
make
that
that decision
determination.
somewhere within that range, should they want to fine somebody.
Correct.
They could always choose not to.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve this before we discuss it further? Chris moves, Ira seconds. Thank you. Any comments from the board on this one? SK, yes.
Yes, $2,000. That's a little bit too excessive or not? I'm just questioning that. And also, second question is, who determines? Our board determine based on suggestion, or those two questions I have?
Okay.
First question is, 2,000 is a little bit excessive to impose on the people here in Dresden?
Okay, so let me give my perspective. So I'll answer the second one first. So the executive hearing board makes the determination without any recommendations. So there's no so they hear a case, and if they decide they want to do that, there are certain. The member can always appeal to the full board. There are certain situations where $500 is a mere pittance. So if somebody is leasing their manor inappropriately, not following our rules and leasing their manor and making thousands of dollars a month, a $500 penalty for them to stop doing that, we have found is not very effective. We have to bring them back over and over again. So it's not like, the expectation isn't that, shouldn't be, that the board is going to throw $2,000 fines at everybody, but it gives the board a mechanism to try to weigh the gain of the violator with the fine. And so that's the intent. Yeah.
Since we are the board members who will determine the fines, yes, I'm a little bit more comfortable then. Okay. Thank you.
Jules, you had a comment or question?
Yes, I object strongly to this whole idea. Andy just recently distributed a glop of legal material, a pile of legal material from the very well-known law firm of Adams Sterling, intending, I understand from what I read, to respond to the question of the Bill of Rights and how it interfaces with the Davis-Sterling Act.
Point of order, that's not the topic.
That's not my statement.
He's just commenting on why it was said.
Yes, right. That proposal is very interesting because it then talks about complaints and penalties. And here's what it says about the penalties. I like the carrot and stick approach when using fines. The goal is to eliminate the violation, not to make money. Once the fine is levied, the board should simultaneously offer to waive the fine if the author complies within 30 days or some other reasonable period. Another section of this actually suggests that there be a limit on the number of times a person can be fined. If you're making several $1,000s a month and you hit them 3 times for a violation, the recommendation, according to the Adams Sterling website, is to simply refer the matter to legal and obtain an injunction. And you can obtain an injunction and obtain fees. So there are really ways of handling it. The danger of this is that it is uncontrolled. And while it's true that we should have a graduated series of fines, or the way we impose fines, that's actually not the way it's been done recently. What has been done, in my experience, is very often the first time a person is hit with a fine, it's not $25, it's several $100s. So I think going to $2,000 classically violates exactly what Adam Sterling is recommending. It's not a carrot and stick. What it really is a penalty, and we shouldn't be penalizing people $2,000.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Moon? Your microphone on?
Microphone.
Okay. Okay, $2,000 or $50 to $2,000. Maybe if we pass that, it may, we hardly review that another 10 years. So $2,000 seems quite a bit, but 10 years later, it's not that big. So I'd rather say $2,000. I like to attach that at 100% of HOA due or monthly due or 200% of HOA due, something like that. So it doesn't, reflect that. That's one thing. And the second one is executive committee. I think the right to inform, the right to know of residents are really impaired. And not only that, even board members, among board members, we don't know what's going on. The executive committee's decision and process are not reported to us at all. Just like, many other committees' process or decision are reported at the board meeting here. But executive committee never been reported here. Okay, so that's another layer of secrecy, which not only board member, also to the resident, not informed at all. So that needed to be corrected. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Any other comments? Andy?
I agree with you. I think this jump in the amount is, you can't beat a dead horse. In other words, they're not going to pay, they're not going to pay. And $500, $2,000, those kind of people. But there are other people that they run afoul of the rules, and it's not any big deal on their part. They just ran afoul of it. And I think by having such a jump in the fee schedule, there's the potential to penalize ordinary people that just ran afoul of the rules. I understand the maximum fines are maybe intended to scare people into doing the right thing. But again, those kind of people, they're not going to pay. They're going to they're going to take their chances. So I agree with you, Jules, on this. The increase is very troubling. I would love to see some language in here that sort of talks about a norm. It's expected that the maximum penalty would not exceed $500 except in egregious cases of merit. I don't see that, but can I get some assurances on that, that in fact you not only have a heart but have a brain when you assess these. That being said, $4,500, 23 violations, that's an average of about $200 a violation practically. So I think what we're getting at is this meant to scare people? Because the people that we want to scare don't get scared. And I'm a little bit concerned it sends the wrong message that there's this big hammer standing over you, when in fact, we're just trying to get it along. We understand mistakes happen, and that's all I want to say is it seems the increase to $2,000 from $500 seems to send a message like, boy, if you mess up, you're really going to get hammered. But in fact, it's about $200 an average. And so what are we trying to do here with this? I just wonder why we set it at $2,000. It was $500. Why isn't it $800 or something closer to what it was? Did anyone answer that?
Yeah, I think I did earlier, and it was that we wanted, again, it's this nudge, this carrot and stick, that sometimes you need a bigger carrot in order to nudge people into compliance, and that's the reason. So again, we can vote, and if you aren't comfortable with that, I'd suggest you vote no.
Okay, thank you.
Kush?
Excuse me. I don't agree with that last sentence of yours, Mark. This is an extreme increase from 500 to 2,000 is 4 times. If you want to nudge somebody, it could be a little nudge. This is like sock you in the face kind of thing. So I don't agree with that sentence. So hang on a second, Jim. No.
He's not doing it.
I'm trying to take a deep breath to control myself. But we may not really need to increase the fees. And if we do, a small increase may be okay. But such a big is like 4 times. It is, in my opinion, totally uncalled for.
Okay.
We are trying to become like the corner bully type of thing for using that kind of a term. So you better follow my rule, otherwise
I'll get to you in a minute. Yeah. So just clarify, these were last updated 30 years ago. So we're just trying to,
okay, but
again, these days you need bigger carrots than you did 30 years ago in the situation where you need it. If you guys are thinking that you have no faith in the board or the executive hearing committee that they are going to fine everybody $2,000, then please vote no.
We are living in a senior community. We are here just to remind people, hey, you made a mistake, don't do it again, type of thing. So we are not here like the IRS or some kind of a enforcement society where, some kind of a vehicle that controls your actions. We are not that. We are here to just remind people that, hey, you made a mistake, just don't do it again, type of thing. But, so we don't have to fine people for everything or anything.
No, you're right. You're right.
So,
I understand. I got it. Jim, I'm trying to move this along.
Yes.
Okay, in my opinion, this is a deterrent for those minority of individuals, small minority, that are abusing the system that affects all of the HOA. Those people leasing illegally that are profiting by thousands and thousands of dollars. A $500 fine to them is no deterrent. A $2,000 fine to them is a deterrent. This isn't going to be for any minor infraction that you're going to go to this extreme limit. It's only in situations of a very, very small percentage of those that are abusing the process. So therefore, it is only going to be at the maximum levels when it's a maximum offense. And like I said, 30 years, it's been $500. If the guy's making an extra $2,500 a month, he can just pay the extra $500 every time he gets fined and keep moving forward without complying.
Thanks, Ralph. Ira, and then Jules.
I've sat on this executive committee for several years now, and let me assure you that the executive committee doesn't run around trying to make a lot of money on this. Quite often, a judgment is made and it's put in abeyance pending elimination of the problem. So the real intent is to try to get rid of the difficulty, get rid of the problem, and the executive committee has a range to work with. And there's sometimes you need a bigger club, like Mark said. Usually you won't, but depends. So this may be a little bit stiff at one time, but it is up to the board, to the executive committee, to actually pick a number somewhere in that range, and if necessary, put it in abeyance. In other words, if the problem is corrected, then fine, no fee. But give the committee some room to work with.
Ira? Thanks.
Well, just as Andy brought up, the average being $200, so everybody's talking about the maximum, the maximum, the maximum. Well, most apparently fines, I'm not on the executive committee, but most apparently are far, far less than the maximum, or as Ralph just stated, not at all. And so that's exactly what you're talking about wanting, and that's what it already is. And the only reason we're all talking about the maximum, because it is an increase, and your fear of the executive committee using the maximum all the time is unfounded, as they're not using the maximum now, as was stated by Andy. So more, and with what Ralph has said, more often than not, as long as the problem is corrected, there is no fine. So I think we're talking a lot about nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's this 2,000 is for, as was stated by Jim, Mark, and everybody else, is for the people that are trying to scam the system. Simple as that.
Okay, thanks, Ira. Jim, Jules, something?
I want to underscore what Andy said. There would be an easy way of handling this, and that is simply to put in the regulation, in the rule itself, that the only time a fine should get anywhere near a maximum, at the very least, should be when it is an extreme violation. That's one way of handling it. But another way of handling it is really what Adam Sterling said, and which is what you will hear in a few minutes. There really should be a way of making sure that remember, the first time that this determination of violation is made is at the same time when a penalty is imposed. So if someone comes to the board and they're given a notice of violation, and the person said, hey, I'm not violating the rules, so I'm going to fight this. And it turns out that the board said, well, actually, you are violating the rules, and we're going to impose this penalty. There should be a second step. Now, there's ways of doing it. One of the ways is what Adam Sterling suggested, which is give them time to correct it, hold it in abeyance. Or the second thing is to simply have the first hearing, the determination of whether there really is a violation. And once you get a determination of a violation, then that person has it. It's very simple. You're either going to comply or you're not going to comply. And that's when you should impose any penalty at all. And that will make this whole board a lot more seeming caring to the members. So the members have a chance. And the vast majority of cases really don't get to that issue. The vast majority of the cases, the facts are not questioned. So if these are the facts, then really the only issue should be whether there was a violation. Facts, violation, only then do you impose a penalty.
Thanks. Okay, okay, got it. Moon and then Chris.
The lady first.
Okay.
I think what we also have to understand is by the time the person comes into a hearing, they've already received 2 notices. So they've already had 2 chances to comply. So it's not like it's
sprung on.
It's sprung on them. Thank you very much.
Wait,
so
go on.
I can see that the majority of these offenders are unintended, minor, and so we're trying to deter or punish it severely to those malicious, repetitive violator. But when you look at as a minor offender, which they were unintended, received this letter, what they would think. There are majority of them who are going to receive this letter, and up to 2,000. Right now, to some people, $2,000 may be not that much, but some people having harder time to come up with the HOA due monthly. Those are 2-3 times more than monthly due, which they may not have. And there will be a big issue to them. Okay, so we look at all the judges, famous judges we are talking about, like LaGuardia, they were in the benefit of people, not the benefit of the organization. When you look at we have to give a benefit to the people, what did they did, or that. So this seems to me in executive committee decision, I have a couple of questions. One is if they have right to appeal after this decision?
Yes.
They do? Sure. Appeal to the full board? Okay. And there's another one, I'm afraid of we are giving too much money penalty or too much power to small group, as we say, executive committee, which is not even report to full board at all. And is that something like we are trying to make a secret organization among this board, which Laguna would never tolerate? Laguna I would say it's...
So I think we can provide some more information.
Yeah,
Just has never been done, never been requested, but you're right, it should have been done whether it was requested or not. But I think we can put some processes in place so that the executive hearing information is shared with the full board. That's a very noble, appropriate request. Thanks. Jules?
I was in line too.
Okay.
I just want to respond to, Chris said, for example, that when a person comes before a hearing, they've already had 2 chances to defend themselves and they've been told they've been in violation. Who told them? An ministerial people at compliance. Compliance doesn't determine whether there is a violation. We determine whether there's a violation. Compliance's job is to present apparent violations if it appears. Now, I think there should be somebody that controls that because they're not the people, they're not trained, they're not educated, they're not experienced to do that. But the point is that the member comes before the hearing and the member has been told by compliance that they're in violation. But compliance has, on many occasions, and I don't want to get into because I've got a lot of experience.
Please don't.
The point is that compliance doesn't determine that there's a violation. Compliance has, on many occasions, made claims that there is a violation when it is clearly not. So,
okay.
no.
All right. Kush, and then we're going to vote.
Yeah.
I mean, we had enough discussion on it.
I think that we are just, Jim, you brought up a point about somebody doing something about renting. Those kind of violations should be in that immediate hearing list. You remember we have a list of the violations, which has a letter first and subsequently they get to a hearing. In this case, they should be going to a hearing right away. And
without giving them the opportunity to correct themselves?
Pardon?
Without giving them the opportunity
No,
to correct
get
themselves?
them to the hearing,
Okay.
and over there, we let them know what they did wrong and give them an opportunity to correct themselves.
Okay. Got it.
And that's what I mean.
So
Don't wait for letters.
I'm going to stop you. We're talking about this monetary penalty, not what the process is about.
I understand, but
executive
that's
hearing. So
why
we're going to vote on the motion here to put this monetary.
I understand,
thing-
Mark, but I'm only bringing that up because Jim was talking about certain violations that would have done that.
Yeah, understand. You were on the resident policy committee?
A long time, yes.
So, again, this is to put this, we're being asked to vote to put this forward for 28-day member review and comment.
I was going to give you one more comment before I voted, but if
Let's
we are,
vote. Not if it's not pertaining to this
yes,
specific thing.
it is. And I was going to say not to increase it, and if you do, there could be a higher amount if just some proper language to say that
Ralph, could you provide your vote?
to keep the same amount of things that we have, but there is a possibility of a higher penalty. That is what I would have done.
Okay.
Kush, can I get your vote as well?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Okay, so this has been voted on. 10 of us have voted, 6 yes, 4 no. So all that means is on 28-day member review and comment. We'll be discussing and voting on it again next month. Thank you. Thank board for the good discussion. Moving on to agenda item 11C for the board to approve reallocation of funds from our utilities account to our landscaping account. This reallocation was requested by Landscape Committee and approved by the Finance Committee. The intent is to reallocate funds that we have saved by not using as much water and spending as much money on water as we expected to our landscaping account so that we can pay for some additional landscaping efforts. Chris, could you please read the resolution?
Yes, unbudgeted expense for landscape improvement projects. Excuse me. Whereas June 21st, 2022, the third Board of Directors recognized that the state of California is experiencing record drought conditions requiring parts of Southern California to reduce exterior irrigation water use and directed staff to reduce irrigation by 15%. And whereas the third Landscape Committee determined that funding for turf reduction projects should be appropriated from savings to the water expense account based on savings from these reductions. And whereas September 7, 2023, the third Mutual Landscape Committee endorsed the recommendation, and whereas October 3rd, 2023, the third Mutual Finance Committee endorsed the recommendation. Now therefore be it resolved on November 21st, 2023, that an unbudgeted expense of $314,900 has been approved to be used for landscape improvement projects throughout Third Mutual. And further resolved further, this resolution shall become in full force and effect on October 17, 2023, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution as written.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, getting long. All right, can I get a motion to approve this reallocation of funds? Ira moves.
I move.
Kush seconds. Thank you. Any questions, comments from the board members? Again, it's not spending any more money, it's just moving money from one fund account to another. Yes, SK?
Is it strictly expense to landscape department, or is it general fund?
Strictly to landscaping.
Because of water saving?
Yeah, water saving, and there are other landscaping things that we're looking to do.
Okay.
So, and yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Quick
Any
question.
other- Yes.
If we, what happens if we don't use all the money this year?
It will roll.
The intent is to roll it over just like
Roll
we
over
did-
to the next year so
Yeah,
we
just
could
like we
use it
did.
again?
We did this similarly last year with the savings because we had cut back on controller water use. And this year, we had a little bit of controller water savings with the new controller system being put in, as well as we had a little more rain. And the intent is to use this to save more money.
Good.
By reducing turf, changing out plants that use less water, less maintenance, in order to reduce our budgets going forward in other areas.
Excellent. Go spend it all, enjoy, make it look nice.
However,
yes, SK?
when they need spend this money, they will request the board for
Sorry?
the expenditures. Am I correct?
What was the question again?
The $314,900, when they need to spend this money, they will request board approval.
Of course.
Committee approval, I mean, spending, not necessarily.
It depends on the amount.
Yeah.
If it's a small, if if we need $500 for something, it won't necessarily come to the board. But if we need 30,000, it will.
I do have a problem with that. Why?
They have a threshold of 25,000.
Yeah.
If it's less than 25, they don't have to ask that question. If it's above, then they do have to. Am I correct, Shravan?
I mean, the landscape
Yeah,
committee.
I understand this is saved by water saving. However, water saving has happened because we spend the money to save water. It's not their money, only landscape department money. To me, it should go to the general fund for other things as well.
This is purely from landscape water.
I understand that.
We understand your point, this guy.
Okay, thank you.
Got it? All right, okay. And not trying to shut anybody down, but just trying to keep them, his point is it should go to a more general fund than just go to landscaping. So I think we all understand that that's his perspective. All right, any other questions, comments? Okay, any member comments? I'm assuming none. Let's go ahead and vote on this one then. There's no 28-day member review and comment as discussed in the agenda update. This is just to make this decision since it's just a funding change.
Michaela, my screen isn't working.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is passed. 9 votes yes, 1 vote no, 0 abstentions. Thank you, board. Moving on to agenda item 11D is for board to approve updated committee assignments. So assignments made result of recent board election, request suggestions. I tried to even out the number of meetings for every 3 months for board members. That was the intent. So we'll start with, can I get a motion to approve the updated committee assignments before we discuss it further? Jim moves, Ralph seconds. Thank you both. Any suggested changes?
I have one.
Yes, Chris?
On page 3 of 8, it refers to the Executive Hearing Committee, and that is incorrect. It should be Executive Committee.
Okay. So that is the committee with all sorts of people in it? Yeah. Just making sure that there's no other executive hearing committee on that page. Okay, all right. Yes, Kush?
I have one observation.
Okay.
And in the GRF committees, there are some in which there's just one person, and there are some in which there are no alternates.
Okay.
So that
Got
was
it. Right.
You want me to point that out to you?
No. Do you want to request somebody's names go into those things?
No, I don't want to.
Yeah,
I just want to tell you that I have observation in which I mentioned.
Got it. Okay. Any other, Moon?
One question is, I thought the finance committee is everybody.
Your microphone, Moon.
Thank you. After all that years, I thought the financial committee should be for everybody, but it's only some people. Second one is I like to be on the GRF finance committee. I want to know what the heck's going on over there, and they're asking so much money from us.
Let me take a quick look. Yes. Okay. I'm going to put Brad as the alternate. I'm going to take myself off the GRF Finance Committee, put Brad as the alternate, and add you, Moon. Is that okay? The Finance Committee, as you mentioned, That was the choice of the previous board/committee chair to have it be a full, a committee of the whole board. And talking it over with the new chair, I think we felt that the whole board wasn't necessary. Yeah, so that was the thinking there, SK?
Yeah, I'd like to be in the MNC committee on the GRF board as well.
MNC? Okay. Jim, you don't?
I'd be glad to be taken on.
Okay, so we'll add Brad as the alternate. Too bad he's not here to defend himself. And put SK. Not a problem. If you guys want more committees, I'm all for it. Okay, Jules?
Yes, I never got a response. Maybe it wasn't sent, but I would request to be on the executive committee, the resident policy committee, and landscape.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. I'm not, hear you, I'm not planning on making any of those changes this time? Yeah. Okay. Happy to meet your expectations. Any other questions, comments? Okay, so we're going to be asked to vote for this. So changes are on page 3 of 8, change executive hearing committee, just executive committee. On change page 5 of 8, remove Mark as the alternate, make Brad the alternate for the GRF Finance Committee, and add Moon as a regular member. And still on page 5 of 8, on the GRF Maintenance and Construction Committee, add SK, change Brad to an alternate, and remove Jim. Those are the changes. Okay. And time to vote on these changes. And Jules, you met my expectations as well with your vote. Thank you. All right, so this is passed 9-1. Okay, and moving on to final new business agenda item. Agenda item 11E is for the board to discuss establishing a task force to define a member's Bill of Rights. Okay. Chris? You have something, question?
I have a comment, if I may.
Okay, sure.
As a reminder, this subject matter has been discussed several times and voted on twice by the board in closed session. Further, legal counsel has opined on this matter twice in closed session. Matters discussed in closed session is deemed confidential. The appropriate venue for this discussion, the appropriate venue to resurrect this subject matter is at a board meeting in closed session. Therefore, I would like to make a motion to have this matter addressed by the board in closed session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I'll second.
So, okay, all right. Okay, any discussion on that topic? Jules?
Yes, the mere fact that something was discussed in closed session doesn't automatically prevent it from being discussed, either the same item or a similar item, in open session. If, for example, someone at a closed session said the Yankees beat the Orioles 3-1, that was in closed session, but it certainly doesn't mean that you cannot discuss it. This is something that is of extreme importance. I'm going to propose that we adopt the Bill of Rights and that we establish a task force. I know you've heard it before, but please bear me out because a lot has changed
So we
since
we have a
discussed.
motion. We have a motion that we need to vote on it before you kind of bypass the motion. If it were a different motion, that'd be something different, but hold on a second. Moon? Hey.
I'm not so sure why we keep on talking about Bill of Rights. It seems to me what Bill of Rights, the content of Bill of Rights, basically you give both the same opportunity, accused or accuser. This is America. Even prisoner in Guantanamo, which killed so many Americans, so many things done to American people. We give them same opportunity to everybody. This is a basic, fundamental right of American citizen. So why are we discussing this? We all have it. Why we have to even discuss this? I don't understand.
Thanks for
if any rule of a CCR or whatever in any organization limiting the fundamental American legal right is wrong. It may go even Supreme Court. This is, I don't know why we're discussing this.
Okay.
This, we already have it. Everybody has it.
Thanks, Moon. Any other comments before we vote on this motion? So the motion was made and seconded to transition the discussion, further discussion of a Bill of Rights to closed session. All right. Okay. So we're going to vote on that.
No, I'd like to make an additional comment, and that is what we're talking about here.
So can you bring up the voting stuff so we can vote while we're chatting?
Is what we're asked in this motion here is to hide from the members the most important relationship that the member has to its government. And we are basically saying that members don't have the right to view or to see the evidence against them. Members don't have the right to cross-examine. Members don't have the right to see all the evidence that is secretly provided to the committee days before the hearing. Members don't have the right to see evidence that is submitted to the committee after the hearing is terminated. The point is that these are existential rights to our members, and anyone who votes against this in open session, anyone who wants to hide it is essentially saying, shh, no, we're going to deal with members' rights privately. They're not entitled to see. This is a horrible idea. It's a terrible idea. It violates the most basic rights of our members, and it should be discussed in open session. And anyone that votes to close it is doing the members a terrible disservice, which they may wind up ultimately being sorry for.
Thank you, Jules. Appreciate that.
Well,
Ira?
one other.
Wait, Ira and then Moon? Because Ira had his hand up there.
So as far as voting in open and closed, I think we're just voting whether to discuss it or not whether to throw it out or keep it. As far as keeping it, the board and the ownership needs to know what is already enshrined in our rules that's already in here. You mentioned a few things, I believe, that were not. Does that mean everything else here is already enshrined and we don't have to do it again? There is no listing here of what is legal with regards to Davis Sterling, because we're governed by Davis Sterling, not necessarily by the other laws that you're referring to, I don't know. This is something that I would be asking our legal counsel. Just as we get a red line version of other policies we're changing, I'd like to see a red line version here of what we already have and what you'd like to add to our rules. Because adopting something with no verification would be a poor thing for the board to do.
Thanks, Ira.
Are we, okay, on screen here, discuss establishing a task force,
Yeah.
oral discussion, and then, is
So
that what
the
we're voting
motion,
for?
the motion is not, is
Or
to approve.
Is that what Chris said, we're gonna do only a closed section?
So the motion is to
What-
discuss this item
what we
in
are
closed
voting-
session.
She's trying to tell you.
The motion is to discuss this item in closed session. Unfortunately, we already had this title listed as discuss establishing a task force to define members' Bill of Rights as it was previously listed. But we'll update it so that it reflects that it's to discuss this item in closed session.
Okay.
But the vote is open for you guys to be able to vote right now.
But
So we're
this was
voting to
supposed-
discuss this in closed session. Further discuss the Bill of Rights.
I would like to answer Ira's question. The answer, Ira, is that there is one section of Davis-Sterling that actually refers to discipline. Despite the mountain of information that Andy gave us, there's only a single section. And the only section that really substantively applies to discipline is section 5855, and it simply says, before you can discipline anyone, you got to give them 10 days notice. And that's it. Davis-Sterling has very little or nothing to do with this discipline. Bill of Rights or anything on discipline is simply a matter of due process. And due process is what you get from cases. And if you look, because no one has ever discussed this, if you look, there is not a single item substantively in the Bill of Rights that is not already required by law, which we are violating regularly, or is perfectly obvious.
Mark, I have one question. If we're gonna discuss a closed session, do we have attorney gonna be there on the
Yes,
Zoom?
we'll have a separate meeting and have the attorney there, yes. We've had the
Okay,
attorney,
so
yes.
the bill gonna go on, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna vote no.
Okay, I'll make your markers as no. Kush, Andy, can I get your votes? Ralph and Ira, okay, thank you. SK? Thank you. Okay.
All right, so this motion passes by 7-3. Can, all right. So we'll all schedule a meeting to discuss this. And with our attorneys present and see if we can proceed in a positive way on this. And thank you. That completes our new business. We're going to move on to agenda item 12, where members of this board will share our monthly committee status updates, starting with a report of the Finance Committee. Andy? Welcome.
Thank you, Mark.
Welcome.
Thank you. I introduced myself to the residents that are watching. I have a background in finance, a lot of background. I'm a CPA. I have a certificate, but I've also been licensed and I practiced. That's many years ago. I'm not active now. I also have an MBA in finance, so I have some feel for numbers. What we're presenting today is a high-level report. You can be assured that in the Finance Committee, which we'll talk about later on, the Finance Committee is a very detailed drill down of the numbers, and I would recommend anyone that's interested in getting this additional info, come to the third Finance Committee meeting. You'll learn a lot. Okay, let's go. We have a series of slides. Slide number 1. Through the reporting period of August 31st, 2023, total revenue for third was $29.715 million compared to expenses of $27.133 million, resulting in a net revenue of $2,582,000. Slide number 2. In finance, we keep a close eye on the operating portion of our financial results. The operating fund shows a surplus of $1.260 million through the reporting period. This chart shows how much of our revenue went into operations, with $19,105,000 coming in from assessments and $1,376,000 coming from non-assessment revenue. This is compared to operating expenditures of $19.221 million without depreciation. I just want to add depreciation is a non-cash outlay, so that's why we don't count it in this slide. Slide 3. This next chart takes the full income statement and compares those results to budget. We can see that third ended the period better than budget by $1.817 million when combining both operating and reserves, revenues, and expenditures. Okay, slide number 4. The most significant variances from budget were attributable to employee compensation and related, a favorable variance of $1.023 million. The favorable variance resulted primarily in the landscape and M&C departments due to open positions. Impacted areas include grounds maintenance, irrigation, manor alterations, paint, plumbing, and interior components. Recruitment is in process to fill in current open positions. Grounds maintenance contracted shrub bed maintenance to outside vendors for the pruning weeding cycle as they continue to fill open positions. Investment income, favorable variance of $432,000. The favorable variance resulted primarily from Treasury bills yielding a higher return than anticipated. Investments have averaged 4% return versus a budget of 1.5%. I want to add that currently we're significantly over 5%, which is great if you're a saver, not so good if you're a spender. Insurance has a favorable variance of $169,000. The favorable variance resulted primarily from slightly lower premiums than anticipated at budget preparation, but it all reflects the current pricing in the insurance market, which has gone up tremendously. Utilities and telephone, favorable variance of $131,000. Favorable variance resulted primarily in water and sewer due to rainfall and conservation efforts. Water consumption was 14% lower than budgeted through August 31. Sewer ended the period favorable as a result of lower sewer rates for domestic use than anticipated at time of budget preparation. Slide 5. On this pie chart, we show non-assessment revenues earned to date of $2.091 million by category, starting with our largest revenue generating categories of investment income. Chargeable services, lease processing fee, permit fee, laundry revenue, resale processing fee, and so on. Let's go to slide 6. On this pie chart, we see the expenses to date of $27.134 million by category, starting with our largest categories of employee compensation and related expenses, outside services, insurance, utilities, and so on. Slide 7. The non-operating fund balance on August 31st, 2023 was $32.836 million. Year-to-date contributions and interest were $9.234 million, while year-to-date expenditures were $7.842 million, which meant that the reserve balances went up. We compared slide number 8. We compared the non-operating fund balances, the historical fund balances for the past 5 years in this chart, which has averaged $30.1 million. Third Laguna Hills Mutual has been committed to supporting reserve requirements while providing more contingency funds for unexpected events. And final slide, number 9 rather. We have a slide here to show resale history from 2021 to 2023. Through August 31st, 2023, third resales totaled 237, which is 63 lower resales than the prior year for the same time period. The average year-to-date resale period for a third mutual was, average resale price for a third mutual was $582,000, which is $22,000 lower than the prior year for the same time period. So here we have, even with declining prices, we have lower sales, and that just reflects the general state of the economy.
All right, all done?
We have a couple things more. No, I guess we're done on that one. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Well done on your first try. Appreciate it. Next, we have the ACSC. Jim?
Yeah, the architectural controls.
Sorry, just a second. Maybe there's a question. My mistake.
Thank you. It could be, okay, income state, the first slide, and then operating income, and then it said exclude depreciation. There's quite a bit number difference. It's a depreciation when you
Yeah. Which slide are we on?
like assessment revenue, to me, it's HOA coming in, right?
Yeah.
And then there's no depreciation for HOA coming in. But when you look to me, then when you look at assessment, the income statement 27, and then the operating income is 19. So there's quite a bit depreciation for HOA.
Just to interrupt for a second, can we put that slide up on the screen so that?
Yeah, which slide is that?
Okay.
So the audience
First
can
and
see?
the seventh slide.
Which one? Slide
First
number?
and the second
The
slide, compare that. I have several other questions, but.
Okay. Yeah, we have an operating surplus of $1.260 million for the year to date.
So what's the difference? The income statement, the 27, and the operating income become 19. So there's 8 difference, depreciation 8.
Depreciation.
So why?
It's a non-cash outlay. It's not real money now. It's just a paper number. But it hits, technically speaking, you have to take depreciation into account, but it's not money in the bank. I don't get the question.
So to help Andy out, this is his first time as treasurer, can
Yeah,
you
okay.
meet with him afterwards and ask your
there.
questions?
Second question is, okay, I look at that, the page 8, slide 8, or slide 7, either way. Okay, you have a disaster fund spent about, it's 1,000, little over 1 million expenditure, and then the 19,000 and unappropriated. Where was it spent? You have any detail?
Okay. All right, here we go.
Spent more than 1 million and no explanation whatsoever.
Yes. So that is where all of the damage restoration work that is done that is paid out of. So if there's a roof leak and as they're fixing mutual's property, that comes from the disaster.
Mr. Treasurer, can you give us more details to inform other residents? So we spent more than 1 million. People doesn't know where the million spent.
Okay.
It's not.
I think we can do that
We are
for
not
next time.
talking about chicken shit.
Yeah, we'll talk to Steve Hormuth about it. Another reason to come to the Finance Committee meeting, because we have that detail readily available. This is very high level.
Yeah, available is not good. Let the people know.
I agree. Come to the Finance Committee
Yeah.
meeting.
You know, there's so many secrets here, even among board
In
members.
accounting, there are no secrets. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Let's open transparency.
Not
Why we are hiding?
hiding.
So many hidings to me.
Okay.
Okay, I was about to write a letter to Jim. Last time when I asked, Jim said, oh, that cannot be asked here in open session. I didn't mention one name. Jim blocked me.
It doesn't matter if you don't mention a name when there's only 2 individuals involved. You're giving out information about people that you can easily decipher who they are.
You know, that question I asked last committee, last meeting here was not answered. I'm going to ask again until I got answered back.
Thank you, Moon. Jules?
I think there is a clear misunderstanding about what our obligations are with respect to confidentiality. The whole purpose of confidentiality is not to hide everything that goes on in a closed meeting. It is to protect the conversations and discussions between parties, between the members of the board, so that we can freely discuss matters without having what we say to each other disclosed. That's the real purpose of confidentiality. And the fact that other things come up and are discussed is not protected necessarily, as we will find out.
Thank you for your opinion, Jules. Appreciate it. No. Next, we have the ACSC.
But Mark, I forgot to mention, first time, our next Finance Committee meeting is December 5th of this year. So you all are welcome.
Okay, continuing on with the report of the Architectural Controls and Standards Committee. The committee met on October 9th, 2023. In that meeting, the recommendations on items 10B and C that we discussed today, Standard 31, which is washers and dryers, was forwarded to the full committee. The other one for the elimination of the demolition term as such being changed to pre-construction mutual consent, also to not have terms that should not be shared with the city and the HOA to separate the confusion. So those 2 items were sent on to the board, which were sent on today by the full board. We had no variances. We had no over-the-counter variances. What that indicates is that we are keeping up with demand, that we're becoming more and more efficient with the ACSC. And because of that, we had no backlog of variances, over-the-counter variances, and we were in a situation of playing catch-up where we were having not only 1 meeting, but sometimes 2 meetings, sometimes 3 meetings to catch up, and now we're all caught up, which is really good and a positive thing for the members. Our items for our future agendas are Architectural Standard 8, that's the porch lift elevators. We should be reviewing that and discussing that in November. It should be ready for the boards looking into it to try and update that standard. Also, the Architectural Standard 41B, solar panels on 3-story buildings. That should come up before the ACSC also in November. The revision to Standard 18, gutters and downspouts, that's to be determined. That's being updated and comments and things being put into that. And then the other item that we had for a future agenda was detailed interior inspections. Again, that's to be determined, but it's in progress, and we hope to see it soon after November. With that, that concludes my comments on ACSC. Our next meeting will be November 13th, 2023 at 1:30 p.m. in the boardroom and as a virtual meeting.
Great, thank you, Jim. Next, we'll hear about the Landscape Committee. Ira?
Sure. I'm going to go through two of them because there's a little catch-up going on. From the September 7th meeting, many of those items came forward here today with regards to the unbudgeted operating expense for water savings, the herbicide spraying agreement, and what we didn't do was we suspended the turf reduction program in order to have all the landscaping staff possible to catch up on tickets, put forth a huge effort to get everything that's backlogged done. So nobody, because some tickets were taking upwards of 3 months, and that's just way too long. So now, as of a couple of days ago, we're down to about just under 300 tickets to complete. Those should be done in the next few weeks, and I'm hoping we can stay up on the tickets to get the greater majority of them done in a 3 to 7 day, that's the goal anyway, 3 to 7 days from the time they're submitted, with the exception of replacing plants in the summertime and a few other things that would not happen because of seasonality. With regards to the October 11th meeting, we were back on talking about the fruit tree policy, and it'll be coming forth to the full board to look at. We're hoping to keep the fruit trees that are already here with agreements from the owners to maintain them. We're gaining information on 2 areas to use wildflowers rather than as a turf substitute in certain areas. And we're waiting on the final draft of the urban forest management plan, as well as a red line draft of the landscape manual. And the next date of our next meeting is Thursday, November 2nd at 9:30 here in the boardroom.
Great, thanks, Iris. And sorry, Ira and Ralph, I've skipped you, Ralph. What's new regarding the
I
third
was
maintenance
beginning
and
to think
construction?
you just totally left me out. We didn't do a lot in the last meeting. The last meeting was August 30th, and I think I covered that the last meeting pretty much.
Okay.
However, I went by this morning to see where the French Drain project in Gate 11 was, and one of them, I think it was, one is Dunes Street or something like that. That looks totally completed, and I would say back to normal, but hopefully better than normal, because it should have dealt with the groundwater. The one at Belmez, there was still construction going on. It looks like it should be completed pretty soon. I think the end of October was the completion date. No bids have been received regarding slope repair. Other management methods are presently being considered, such as cost plus or something like that. We don't like that, but that may be what we'll have to do. Mailbox replacement for buildings 3434 and 3438, or that particular part of the cul-de-sac, is complete, despite a minor difficulty encountered in key distribution for the new mailboxes. But I think that's overcome now. Next meeting of the third M&C is scheduled for 1:30 p.m. November 6th here in the boardroom and on Zoom.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. And Jules, you're the new chair of the Water Conservation Committee. Do you have anything to report today?
Nothing today.
Okay. Didn't think so, but thanks. Wanted to give you the chance. And regarding the third Resident Policy and Compliance Committee, this committee last met on Wednesday, August 22nd. During that meeting, we discussed Third's disciplinary matrix, which tells compliance what processes to follow based upon the potential violation identified. We discussed the process that compliance follows when they receive multiple requests for the same violation, even if that violation can't be confirmed. And we started working on a new, more simple barbecue policy, which will not allow charcoal in multi-story buildings, but we're still working on that. This committee will next meet on Tuesday, October 21st, so it's next Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. here in the boardroom. We plan to continue our discussion on the barbecue policy and continue discussing THIRD's compliance processes, specifically around ensuring that objective evidence is collected before sending any notices of violation to our members. And that's all we have for THIRD mutual committees. Now we'll move on to agenda item 13, where we will share our monthly GRF committee status updates, starting with the GRF Community Access Committee. Kush.
Yes, sir. So the Community Activities Committee met on October 12th.
Microphone.
My apology. Let's start again. The Community Activities Committee last met on October 12th, 2023 in the boardroom. We approved the operating rules for all the activities of and clubs that we have in our recreation. The Bonanza reservations is going in full swing. By now, it could be almost full or already full. That was the information I had at the meeting. Tom Jones tribute band was here. The concert was a success, although it was event was dampened by the rain that they had that day, and the number of people that they expected were much less. Pool hours and clubhouse hours have been extended by the GRF board, so there are many happy people. The Hoedown event was this last weekend at the Equestrian Center. The number was a little less, but the band was quite good. The next meeting is, I'm sorry, I'm not ready with that information. It's on November 9th at 1:30 p.m. in the boardroom.
Thank you, Kush.
Thank you.
Next, we have the GRF Maintenance and Construction Committee. Rob?
Okay. This last GRF M&C committee was October 11th, I think just last week. We covered a number of items there. Installation of the second heating, ventilation, air conditioning system for the broadband building is almost done. There was an ad hoc committee formed to advise the GRF board on Building E. Painting of trim and stall doors at the Equestrian Center was completed in September. Construction of the new Equestrian Center fencing and gate, as well as the RFP for the arena lighting, are scheduled for November. The driving range improvement contractor is reseeding several areas where the stolens didn't take, and this will be done at no extra cost to the village. New equipment needed to meet the state mandated electrical requirements, eventually some 20 items, has been determined by a landscape department, and engineering for the repair shop electrical system necessary to accommodate this new equipment has been completed. The construction RFP has been circulated, and bids are due this month. Welding shop replacement bids are also due this month. Bids for the service center generator replacement at the vehicle maintenance building have been evaluated. Status for emergency electrical power for security at their new temporary location was discussed and will have to be addressed as needed. ChargePoint EV charging rates were briefly discussed. The concern was keeping our charging rates in step with costs. We also discussed items concerning clubhouse facilities renovation ad hoc committee, which I guess I'll cover later unless you want it now.
You can do it now. I wasn't planning on having you talk about it.
Okay, I will do it now then. Give you a little background here. The clubhouse facilities renovation ad hoc committee started out as a Clubhouse One renovation committee. but it devolved into the Clubhouse One, pardon the expression, beautification committee, limiting structural rebuilding. And then it was expanded to include renovation of all clubhouses as such may occur. While not meeting as a separate committee since March, the activity continues within the GRF-M&C umbrella. Bids for renovation or beautification of Clubhouse One have been received. Staff are evaluating them and will present a recommendation at a special GRF-M&C meeting later this month. An inspection report form, a document has previously been developed to help routine inspection of each clubhouse. They're kind of a checkoff list. The committee requested some revision of that form to show detailed information such as an SO number of any requests, repair requests, as well as the status of any discrepancy correction. And Clubhouse 4 will have to have a special one because they have a lot of other operating equipment for the various shops. Design of the PAC restroom is continuing. Bids for resurfacing the pool deck at Clubhouse 2 have been received. VMS has been requested to reevaluate the scope of work for that one. Cognizance of a projection system for the Clubhouse 1 ballroom has also been placed as a special item in the Clubhouse 1 renovation project. Clubhouse 1 swimming pool and fountain replastering bids have been received and evaluated. The staff recommendation is due this month. I'm not aware of any scheduled future meetings of the clubhouse facilities ad hoc meeting per se, but I'm sure that'll continue under GRF. The next meeting of the third M&C committee is scheduled for 1:30 p.m. November 6th here in the boardroom and on Zoom.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ralph, for that detailed report. Do you have any updates, Jim, that you can share with us?
Other than the GRF Broadband Ad Hoc Committee met yesterday, everything's moving forward on what is going to happen. We're actually kind of on call because as things come in that we need to make decisions on, then we will have meetings. So the meeting that shows here is scheduled on October 24th. It's actually to be determined as we proceed.
Okay. Hopefully something will be able to be shared more than just we're meeting one of these days. Next, we have the GRF Disaster Preparedness Task Force, SK.
Yes, GRF Disaster Preparedness Task Force Committee meeting was held on September 26, 9:30 a.m. in this boardroom. In that meeting, DPTF committee discussed many agenda items and three major items discussed as follows. First, Director Skillman showed what they call fire blanket sold by Prepare Hero. It will be cost about $30, and she showed us how it works. So anyone interested in, maybe contact her. Another one is installing radio antenna at Clubhouse 3 need to be done by outside sources. So because carpentry and electrical work required. Third item is notice of a Great California Shakeout drill on October 19th, which is tomorrow, at 10:19 a.m. So please mark your calendar and participate. And next, the DPTF meeting is scheduled on November 20th, 9:30 a.m. in this boardroom. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, SK. Just a minor comment. The shakeout is this Thursday, not tomorrow. So today is only Tuesday. So
I'm sorry, October 19th.
Yeah, so 10:19 at 10:19.
10:19.
All right, great, thanks. Next, moving on to the GRF Compliance Ad Hoc Committee. Andy?
Yeah, the committee met on October 5th, 2023, and completed its work on the compliance policy. And it's not a very long or detailed policy, but there were some changes made. It was submitted to the GRF board, and even though there could be a further meeting, the work is done on it. because it was focused on the compliance policy. So next meeting to be announced, but maybe there won't be any.
Yeah. Okay, great. And while I've got you, what can you share regarding GRF Purchasing Task Force?
GRF Purchasing Task Force Committee met on October 4, 2023. The committee completed its task of rewriting the purchasing policy, which is really something Bunny Carpenter, the president of GRF, is very proud of. And to that extent, it's going to be presented to all the directors on Monday, October 23rd, in the boardroom here. So you're all invited to attend that because it's a rollout of this revised purchasing task force policy. Next meeting is to be announced, but again, we completed the task of the committee, and I don't know when that's going to be announced.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have an update of the Information Technology Advisory Committee. This committee, known as ITAC, is overseeing the development and implementation of the new village-wide computer system. The first phase of this system will focus on our accounting tools and is currently in its testing phase. The current plan is that the first phase, or this accounting tool phase, will go live in February of next year. And the committee spent a fair amount of time discussing the various key tasks that need to be successfully completed over the next few months in order to support that February go-live date. The ITAC is scheduled to next meet on Friday, October 27th. And that's all I have for that. And what's the latest with regards to the
Yes,
renewals?
hearing, traffic hearing was held on September 20th, 9 a.m. in this boardroom. In the traffic hearing, 5 violations were heard, and the hearing committee vote as follows. First, 1 violation was dismissed because the traffic officer was not able to provide speedometer readings. Second, that person was lucky, I guess. Second, 3 violations were guilty and fine. 1 violation was guilty and pay half fine. However, I want to make sure people understand stop sign. I do have a tendency of slow, stop, and then go at the stop sign. But according to my 4 times participant in the hearing, I noticed that people do not stop. Also, pull forward too far beyond the stop sign line and they get fined. If you continue fine, it's okay if you're willing to pay money, but please stop before stop sign. I just wanted to all third residents understand that. They will get you fined for that. Next traffic hearing is scheduled on October 15th, which is tomorrow, 9 a.m. in this boardroom. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks for the update and the reminder. And finally, the following GRF committees have not met since the last third board meeting of September 19th, so there are no updates for these. The GRF website ad hoc committee last met on May 22nd, and the date and time of its next meeting is to be determined. That's we're working through the contract. We've identified a vendor to rewrite our website and working on the contractual terms. The GRF Mobility and Vehicles Committee last met on August 2nd and is scheduled to next meet on Monday, November 6th at 1:30 p.m. here in the boardroom. The GRF Landscape Committee last met on August 22nd and is scheduled to next meet on Wednesday, September 26th at 9:30 a.m. here in the boardroom. The GRF Media and Communications Committee last met on September 18th and is scheduled to next meet on Monday, November 20th at 1:30 p.m. here in the boardroom. The GRF Security and Community Access Committee last met on August 23rd and is scheduled to next meet on Wednesday, October 25th at 1:30 p.m. here in the boardroom. And finally, the GRF Finance Committee last met on August 16th and to schedule to next meet tomorrow, Wednesday, October 18th at 1:30 p.m. here in the boardroom. That concludes our committee reports. We're now at agenda item 14, which is for the board to note any items they'd like to be discussed at a future open board meeting. So far on our list, we have the 4 items that we today put on 28-day member review and comment, which are eliminating the demolition consent requirements and associated fees, approving the revision to Architectural Standard 31 washer and dryer installations, adopting thirds collections and lien enforcement policy, and approving the amended schedule of monetary penalties. Are there any other agenda items anyone would like to add at this time? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to now agenda item 15, which is directors' comments. Do any directors have any last-minute comments that they'd like to share regarding topics discussed today? We're going to limit time since we're running late. SK, start with you. Nothing? Okay, move.
I just add, we are all here for the resident. Resident pay the money and we use their monies, how to use it. And we have to be more transparent. How we do it, where the money go. I like to emphasize the transparency.
Thank you. Jules, nothing? Ira? Ralph? Okay, Jim?
No.
Okay. Okay, Chris? Andy?
Yeah, I'd like to add some information here. The GRF Finance Committee gets involved in a lot of things, and we're meeting soon. But of note is that the GRF Finance Committee has established 2 ad hoc committees. One of them, it deals with the resolution of the Building E issue. You know, Building E is closed, and we have to find a replacement for the functions and people that were in Building E. GRF Finance, Jim Hopkins has established an ad hoc committee to do that. So it's going to be an open session, and good reason to come to the GRF Finance Committee meeting to hear about what's going on with that. Second thing is, Jim Hopkins has also established an ad hoc committee to look at room rental pricing. I don't know if some of you were at the meeting earlier this year. It's a very contentious thing. It's an important issue. And what's been established is an official ad hoc committee to look at room rental pricing. Again, it's going to come up at the meeting. So I would encourage anyone who has an interest in those things to come to the GRF Finance Committee. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Okay. Now, regarding that room rental pricing ad hoc committee, is that only open to GRF Finance Committee members?
No, it's an open meeting.
Meaning, but who's on it? Meaning, I didn't.
You know, I don't have that.
Okay.
But I'm saying that maybe, just
GRF.
jog my memory, maybe we need an item going forward, a report on the ad hoc committees. There's 2 of them being
Yeah, I
added.
guess, well, yeah.
So we'll
yeah,
talk about it.
One was just created today, as far as I know, but yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know about this one, so thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Moon, did you have a
Yeah,
comment?
same GRF elections coming up, so the whole composition may be different. So we gotta wait and see what's going on.
Okay. All right, okay. Kush, anything fine? Kayla, you're ready to eat? Okay. With that, I have nothing further as well. The business of our open meeting has now been completed. At this time, the monthly board will recess for 4 minutes. All right.
Four minutes?
And then the executive committee will reconvene to executive session. Thanks, ma'am, for sticking around. And appreciate it.